What's up, guys? We're recapping I Need Someone to Stop My Older Brothers. Hit that subscribe button, and let's get started. This is a drama about the granddaughter of an archduke. The protagonist looks out the window and thinks the journey has been too long. It's been difficult and full of trials. Much has happened along the way, and at one point, she even encounters the Demon King. At the same time, the girl had 3 older brothers who surrounded her with care every minute. And just recently, she reconnected with someone truly dear to her. The maid informs Lady Danae that the time has come. The young lady calmly replies that she will be with you soon. The main character believes this is her revenge after 500 years. Despite everything, she has returned. The boy screams and insists they're mistaken, as he's not the Demon King. Another man urges them to be careful and not let the Demon King trick them by suggesting they attack. It's a world of magic and swords. Asanov is the Empire's sole archduchy. Their history begins with a legend dating back 500 years. For the sake of a rich land blessed by the gods, the Demon King declared war. As a result, the entire continent was plunged into chaos. All states joined forces and created an allied army. But even this proved insufficient, and defeat became inevitable. At that moment, the hero received a divine revelation from the goddess Rosiante. Thus, the archmage Pamela Asanov was born, who, together with other mages, sealed the evil Demon King. Without a leader, the demons were banished to their own world, to the desert beyond the Misty Mountains. A massive magical barrier was erected in the Misty Mountains to prevent demons from attacking. A mansion with strict security was built at the foot of the mountain. People called this place the Winter Mansion. Since then, the Duchy of Asanov was commanded to defend it to the last drop of blood. Pamela's will became the family's guiding spirit, and he silently guarded this place for 500 years. In the Empire, the Asanov legend is known even to children, but it contains a grave error. The creature destroyed by Pamela was not, in fact, the Demon King. The main character doesn't understand how she knows all this truth, but after reading the book, everything became clear, and she considers herself a victim. The Archduchy's eldest son, Lucas Asanov, approaches Danae and asks if she's okay and if she's in any pain. She replies that she feels fine. The young gentleman greets the girl, calls her a brat, and asks if she's reading boring books again. This is the second son and elder of the twins, Baratheon Asanov. The third son, the younger of the Shizasinov twins, asks his brother why he's bothering a sick child. At that moment, the girl thinks he's merciless even to his older brother. Danae says she's fine and explains that she was simply thinking about Asanov's great story. She asks not to worry and assures her that nothing hurts. At this time, the Avenger watches them from afar and quietly says that they can laugh as long as they are allowed to. The protagonist reflects on how she was mistaken for the Demon King and died at the hands of Pamela Asanov. 500 years later, she was reincarnated as Danae Asanov, the Archduke's granddaughter. In her past life, she was the apprentice of a simple mage. The only exception was living in a shelter among the Misty Mountains with Master Kaladirian. The young gentleman, surprised, asks who said they were living in a shelter. He insists it's a quiet place with clean air and that she's very lucky to live here. A young lady tells Master Rien that the Misty Mountains are home to various races and ferocious beasts. He responds with the proverb that a place of attachment becomes a home, and thinks it's sometimes better not to utter it. The main character does not understand the course of his thoughts and remembers that Master Kaladirian was the man who raised her. On the way to the Misty Mountains, he told her how he'd found her abandoned in the slums. She'd been a hungry child then, crying so loudly that it was irritating, and she found it strange that no one had taken her in. The master said that thanks to this he had a child without even getting married, and yet he complained about it every day. He taught the girl everything he knew until he suddenly fell ill and died. She mastered knowledge, magic, and fencing, and the teacher himself was strict and almost perfect. Through rigorous training, Danae became a powerful mage and mastered swordsmanship. She was determined from childhood, and this served her well throughout her life. The protagonist tells the master that the effect of this magic is incredible and will last even after hundreds of years. He confirms that any object will retain its shape and properties. The girl enthusiastically says that the magic of preservation is incredibly convenient. Danae suggests testing it on the bag. The master agrees, but suspects that, as before, the magic might not dissipate. She explains that she simply forgot the spell to reverse the effect. The master suggests using the spell with her name, and the girl is surprised. He explains that the name contains power and that the spell will become more reliable, and then suggests trying it. Danae considers the master a wonderful man and views him as a parent. She couldn't understand why he lived in such a secluded place and even thought he might be a criminal. But even if this is so, she doesn't care, because for her he was the most precious person in the world. As a child, she remembered their fishing trips, the big fish they caught, and the bedtime stories. Back then, she dreamed of living quietly in this forest, with warmth in her heart. One day in the misty mountains, there was a commotion because of the talkative fairies. The fairies whispered about a treasure ship that sank during a storm and wondered what happened to the people on board. The protagonist overheard their conversation and thought that with such treasures, one could live without worries. She couldn't understand why the fairies always discussed this around her. Danae decided that perhaps the fairies liked her. She understood that they knew a lot and, despite their noise, never lied, which meant their words were useful. The main character asks the fairies if there has been any disorder in the Misty Mountains lately. The fairy in the yellow dress is surprised and says the Demon King has made this place his base. He wins day after day and throws wild parties. Hearing this, the girl understands what is being said and thinks that everything will soon calm down. But the parties continued every night. After a month, she realized she was tired of the noise and constant lack of sleep and couldn't take it anymore. Danae opens the door and, with a cry, declares that she will not let this go. She orders the Demon King to leave immediately. The demon asks who she is. The girl replies that she is an ordinary person, deprived of peace by his noisy festivities. She asks if he'll be quieter or move the base. The demon is surprised and says it's funny. The red-eyed demon asks what kind of person would dare to attack the Demon King. At that moment, the girl realized that words hadn't helped. She didn't want to fight, but there was no other way. The young lady realizes her training was worth it. Using magic and techniques, she quickly brings the savage to the floor, and he is amazed by her strength. Danae herself is surprised, having never defeated the master. She thinks her teacher was the strongest in the entire universe. The demon angrily declares that she is the first human to defeat him. He kneels and declares her his king. Hearing this, the heroine is shocked. From that moment on, the former Demon King and his subordinates follow her. The young lady asks how long they plan to pursue her, and again states that she will not become the Demon King. The red-eyed boy replies that she's beaten him. The girl suggests hitting her back to make him the winner and asks if that's okay. He replies that he doesn't dare attack the Demon King. The girl asks irritably if he's tired of repeating the same thing, thinking he's irritating her. They were watched from afar. That's how she met her death, mistaken for the Demon King. She says she'll return and take revenge, because she can't afford to fall into eternal sleep because of such injustice. Danae doesn't understand what's happening and feels a pressure, as if her body is being squeezed by water. She wonders if she will actually die, but she's confident she will survive. A few weeks ago, she woke up in a luxurious room and heard strange voices. Danae thought they were Asinov's relatives. Baratheon says the enemies probably hoped to swallow the family up after the Archduke's death, but now he has an heir. The younger twin says that everything will become clear after interrogating the captured scoundrel, which is why he was not put into eternal sleep, but was brought here. His brother declares that he will conduct the interrogation himself, and if he is a magician, only he will be able to resist him. The protagonist is surprised, feeling like the Archduke's granddaughter. She hears the name Asinov and wonders if this is the same Asinov who once cast her into eternal sleep. The young lady feels her body as heavy as a wet rag, and her eyes cannot open fully. The girl tosses and turns in bed, and the young men scream, calling her name and asking if she has come to her senses. She opens her eyes and sees their surprised faces, not knowing what to say. Lucas asks how she's feeling, and if she has a headache. His brother exclaims that the scoundrel turned out to be a charlatan. Danae doesn't understand who these handsome men are. One of them suggests calling the charlatan again, noticing her paleness. The young lady looks at them and asks who they are, realizing that she cannot ask otherwise. The dark-haired guy apologizes and offers to start with an introduction. He says his name is Lucas, and it's nice to meet you. The fair-haired man introduces himself as Baratheon, and next to him stands his twin brother, Shisi. The older gentleman informs her that they are all her brothers. The girl is surprised and smiles, not understanding how this is possible. The protagonist decides to clear her head and remembers that she lost her parents early in life. She was adopted by a couple who ran a small village inn. Her adoptive father turned out to be rude and constantly humiliated her, considering her useless and complaining about food. He said that he didn't understand where she got that eye color and that impudent look from. The main character understood that she was formally a daughter, but in reality, she lived like a slave. She recalled how her father often beat her when she was too young to defend herself. The sister informs Danae that the magical barrier of the Misty Mountains has weakened. She smiles and says she's glad about this. Father reasons that with the growing number of mercenaries and mages, the inn will be full of guests, because even the Knights of Asanoff admit that it is difficult to defeat demons. The girl asks her sister what is on her face and suggests that she go wash her face. Danae thinks she's saying this on purpose, knowing she's not supposed to take a bath. The girl in the red dress pities her because of her worn clothes. The young lady offers Danae to take things that she no longer wears. Suddenly, the girl feels a blow and falls in pain. The man rudely asks why she's frozen and if she can finish the job. The mother says Danae is useless despite caring for the orphan. She claims she knows no gratitude and will one day repay her enemy with kindness. In the evening, Danae looks at her sister's clothes and realizes that she will wear them again. She realizes that she is 13, and the clothes of her younger sister, who is 3 years younger, hang loosely on her. Looking at the shoes, she notices that they have no insoles and are very worn. The young lady thinks of her violet eyes, like her father's, which caused her to be despised. She ate only scraps and slept in the barn next to the stables. Because of this, her body became permeated with the smell of manure. Every night she dreamed of her parents coming for her and of her being with them again. Danae remembers that her parents died protecting her from a monster. Her father's name was Linte, and her mother's was Carly. In her dreams, her parents smiled, hugged her, and greeted her as their beloved daughter. At such moments, she was truly happy and dreamed of it becoming a reality. But the reality was cruel, and she lived in pain for years, missing her parents every day. The difficult, everyday life changed dramatically with the appearance of one night. A boy with bright hair asks if her name is Danae. She thinks it's a dream, because it's dazzling and seemingly unreal. The main character realizes that a knight has appeared at the inn for the first time and confirms his name. She asks if he has business with her, looking at his clean clothes and feeling how different she is from him. The innkeeper approaches them and mockingly asks if the knight has come for Danae's sake, not believing that a noble man would be interested in such a child. The girl thinks that the smell doesn't go away because her clothes are never washed, and she simply doesn't have any other ones. The man says they are ashamed to show her because of her short skirt, holy shoes, and hated eye color, which, according to him, everyone despises. At that moment, the girl thought it would be better if the skirt were longer and covered her dirty shoes. She understood that a fairy tale where everything would resolve itself would most likely not happen. The knight said that purple eyes were a distinguishing mark. The main character was surprised, as no one had ever told her that before. The knight stated that Danae Asanoff is the granddaughter of His Excellency Archduke Asanoff. The young gentleman confidently declared that this position was not suitable for her. He announced that he had received orders from Archduke Asanoff and had come to fetch Lady Danae. The knight added that the young lady was a special person and would soon realize it herself. Hearing this, the man cried out and asked who gave him the right to take Danae. He grabbed the girl and declared that she was his daughter and he would not give her up without permission. The father ordered the girl to say she wasn't going to leave. He quietly added that otherwise she would be beaten again. The knight, astonished, asked if they had really beaten the lady. The man, frightened by his gaze, quickly denied it. At that moment, the girl was surprised, thinking that the knight had very good hearing. The father began to insist that the knight had misunderstood everything. He said that he had become her father and would never have dared raise a hand against her. The knight didn't believe it and pushed him so hard that a crack appeared in the wall. The heroine realized he had literally been slammed into the wall. The young gentleman turned to Danae and asked her to show him where she had been beaten. She quietly replied that she had been beaten on her legs, back, and head. Hearing this, the knight no longer held back. It seemed he was pouring out all the pain and humiliation the girl had endured. He beat his father in the exact places she pointed out. He only begged for help and asked her to stop. Hearing his screams, the girl remembered how she herself begged him to stop and not beat her anymore. Danae thought that from the outside, it looked like he was paying back many times over for everything he had done to her. The knight turned to the girl and offered to go. She immediately agreed, without even having time to process how it all happened. The young gentleman calmly remarked that there was a pleasant breeze today. His gentle tone made the girl wonder if this was the same man who had just brutally beaten her adoptive father. Danae felt lost. Looking up at the sky, she thought it was astonishingly beautiful, as if for the first time since her parents' death. Thus, the main character escaped the clutches of her foster parents. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she believed she would get better. But on the way, they were suddenly attacked by bandits. The young lady became frightened, and the knights reported that the attack was coming from the west. When the fight began, the horses bolted in panic. The carriage door swung open, and the girl fell straight into the water. Seeing that she was drowning, the knight screamed, but could do nothing. Danae couldn't understand why there was no peace in her life. Opening her eyes, she found herself in a strange place, and falling into the water stirred memories of a past life. A sudden anger overwhelmed her. She remembered how, in her past life, she had been mistaken for the Demon King and died at the hands of Pamela Asanoff. The girl remembered how much she hadn't managed to do. She believed he had taken away her future and decided she would definitely take revenge. Danae thought the current circumstances were perfect for revenge. All the knowledge from her past life was preserved, and with Master Rien's tenacity and magic, she would destroy Pamela Asanoff. She was surprised that in this life, too, her name was Danae. She felt that there really was power in a name. Danae decided it was a reward for her absurd death. She believed God had taken pity on her and given her a second chance to live under the same name, and then the skill of free interpretation was activated. Baratheon asked his brother why he hadn't let him introduce himself. The girl looked at him and thought he was huge, like a bear from the forest. The boy said his name was Baratheon, and he was glad to meet her. She flicked him, called him a fool, and told the little girl to ignore him. The girl looked at them and wondered if they really were twins. Lucas said she could call them brothers, even though they weren't biological, having all been adopted. Shizay added that an old man had gathered them all, which surprised the girl. Baratheon explained that he meant Archduke Asanoff, her grandfather. The main character asked if she really had a grandfather. She recalled the conversations at the hotel and clarified whether she really was Asanoff's granddaughter. The brother replied that it was most likely true, since with eyes that color, no other proof was needed. He added that something was troubling him. Baratheon lifted her into his arms and was surprised by how light she was. He remarked that she was too thin and called Asanoff shameless. The girl thought she wanted to be adopted. But her brother compared her to an abandoned puppy of an elite breed, and she didn't understand why he would say that. The boy said that before the old man returned from the capital, they needed to show their best side. Otherwise, he might think they were abusing the child. Shizay declared that, although his brother was foolish, he agreed with him this time. Baratheon cried out and demanded to speak normally. Danae didn't understand how exactly to show herself in a good light, and what that even meant. She's told the little girl to be happy, because they would show her her true origins. Hearing this, the girl didn't understand what they were planning. But since they promised to show her, she followed them. She saw a luxurious room, and her brother said that this was now her room and she was the mistress here. The little girl asked in surprise if this was really her room. Her brother replied, "Did she still have any doubts?" Shizay said she should admit it, since she looked so much like the old man. He added that Haydn recognized her immediately. The man confirmed this, turning to Lady Danae. At that moment, the girl thought she had heard that voice somewhere before. Remembering, she screamed and asked if he was the one who was at the hotel last time. The knight calmly replied that they had met again. Lucas asked if she already knew Haydn and informed her that he had been assigned to protect her. He added that caution was never a bad thing. The brother introduced his personal maid Marina, who would be responsible for her from that day on. Luxurious furnishings and works of art filled the mansion. A night escort and an elegant maid created the feeling of a dream. Marina turned to the lady and suggested they go. The little girl didn't understand where and asked about it. A few minutes later, the maid was already washing the girl, asking if it was too hot. Danae said it was fine, enjoying her first bath with rose petals. The main character thought that a bath was real bliss. After bathing, the girl tried on a dress for the first time in her life. Marina noticed it was a bit big, but the knight said the outfit had been chosen for her age. Danae realized that because of her life in the hotel, she ate poorly, and therefore ate less than her peers. She considered it a real blessing to be able to wear such beautiful clothes. The little girl said that she really likes the dress, the fabric doesn't rub her skin, and the scent and soft hair seem incredible. The girl felt Marina stroking her head, and she gradually began to feel sleepy. Suddenly, Danae remembered her purpose. She realized he had mistakenly put an innocent man into eternal sleep and was living in undeserved luxury. She considered that, as the Archduke's granddaughter, Asanoff was a descendant of the Archmage Pamela. But if he was no longer alive, how could she take revenge? Danae realized that the magical knowledge remained the same, but the mana to use it was gone. She didn't know how to get her mana back, but she decided to do everything she could. On second thought, the situation wasn't so hopeless. The little girl decided that starting tomorrow, she would begin a new plan for revenge. All she had to do was confront this bastard's family. The maid asked if the young lady would like to tour the mansion. She asked her to wait a moment, and soon returned with a basket. The little girl asked in surprise what it was. Marina replied that it contained black tea and sweets, as she might get hungry on a walk. The maid added that she'd packed plenty of chocolate and cookies, which the mistress liked. The girl thought Marina had thought of everything. Danae thanked Marina, and Haydn offered to carry the basket. The girl felt incredibly good, as no one had ever cared for her like this before. The main character thought the walk looked harmless, but in fact, she was exploring enemy territory. She decided to change her strategy. If she couldn't personally put Pamela into eternal sleep, then she would destroy the Asanoff family, basking in wealth and fame. The little girl believed that by pretending to be a good child, she was gaining trust. Slowly, like a wet cloth in the rain, she would destroy the Asanoff family. She recalled Master Caladrian's words about defeating an enemy being simple: conceal your target and abilities, then strike suddenly. The master said that first it is necessary to learn everything about the enemy and the terrain. So Danae decided to start by exploring the Asanoff mansion and hide her dark intentions by putting on an innocent mask. The knight gave the girls some sweets and remarked that it was good that they took them. She thought this was excellent reconnaissance and suggested they go in a different direction. Suddenly, she heard a question about her strange outfit. The younger twin stood before her. Chasse asked why she was walking around like that and where the clothes she had prepared had gone. Danae explained that these were her clothes. He was surprised, reminding her that she was 13, and she replied that she was just a little younger. The girl thought he had a handsome face, but his words sounded dismissive and repulsive. She admitted that she's looked dazzling, as if the clothes were made especially for him. Her outfit did seem a bit too big in comparison, but she didn't think it was funny. Danae said no one had ever mentioned her strange appearance before. Chasse replied that it was natural and asked who else would dare to say such a thing. He asked her what she ate to look like a straw doll. She felt he was crossing a line. She asked what was wrong with being smaller than her peers, and remarked that it would be better to shorten the sleeves. Chasse looked at her hand and said he now understood why that idiot had been making a fuss about her weight. Then he picked her up. Danae screamed and asked what he was doing. She sensed powerful magic within him and realized that, despite his fragile appearance, he was very strong. Chasse said that even he couldn't handle raising such a child. The girl asked if she had said anything, and he replied that her eyes had said it all. Danae asked in surprise where he was taking her. He said she would see everything, but she demanded to be let go. The main character did not understand why he was looking at her so intently and why he sat her down next to him. The little girl realized she had recently sensed his magic. She didn't know who he was and decided he was the most dangerous person in the world. Danae didn't understand what kind of room this was, as there was almost no furniture. She didn't know why he'd brought her here, but he continued to stare silently. The girl took the cookies and ate several. She felt awkward eating alone and decided she would be a good child if she shared. She offered Chasse something to eat, thinking that she could give him the almond cookies that she didn't like. The guy refused, but the little girl said it was very tasty. At this time, Haydn was watching them and suggested the girl eat more. She replied that there were already plenty of sweets. Chasse explained that was why he was telling her to feed herself. The girl agreed, slightly regretting the missed opportunity. Danae decided that next time, she would ask the cooks not to make macaroons. Lost in thought, the little girl heard a sigh and saw the boy eating the cookie right from her hands. She said he'd eaten everything and asked if she was satisfied. She froze, feeling his handsome face too close. The guy told her she should finish the rest herself because he was worried she was too thin. Hearing this, the girl suddenly started coughing. The young gentleman asked Haydn why he was standing idle. The knight replied that he would open it right away and swung the door open, revealing the wardrobe to the young lady. The girl saw a multitude of beautiful dresses, various outfits, and shoes exactly her size. She asked in surprise what it all meant. Shisei took a handkerchief and told her she needed to wipe the cookie crumbs from her lips. He added that it would be embarrassing if anyone saw. The young master noticed the servants looking at him in amazement. He asked why they were staring and if they had no work to do. The servants immediately dispersed, and one of the maids hastily said that they were already working. The boy told the little girl to go to a designated place and change her clothes. The girl didn't understand why this was necessary and asked why she needed to change. The young gentleman explained that his little sister was wearing clothes that were too small for her and asked if he should just watch. Hearing this, Danaya thought the reason was rather strange. She decided that this was simply his character and she should accept it as it was. She turned to the maid and said she was in charge of the fitting, offering to select clothes to suit the child's taste. The maid assured her she would do everything perfectly, but the girl screamed and asked her to wait a bit. The boy was surprised and asked why. The little girl asked if they'd make it in time for lunch, explaining that she wanted to get back to her room and finish her book. At that moment, she realized she really wanted to start plotting revenge. Her brother suggested they read at night because she'd have a lot to do during the day. He said he'd order at least 50 dresses and suggested they finish that evening. The young gentleman said they would begin right away. The girl replied that she would obey and thought she had to behave perfectly to avoid arousing suspicion. The maid approached Shisei and informed her that the fitting was complete. The little girl came out in a new dress and asked him if he liked it. He said it looked nice, but the main thing was that she liked it and asked her opinion. Danae replied that the dress suited her. The young gentleman suggested the salesperson add it to her shopping list. Then she tried on the second outfit, and Shisei said it suited her very well. The salesperson immediately added it to the list. When the main character put on her third outfit, Shisei noticed that her waist needed to be cinched in a bit. The maid immediately said she'd take care of it. The girl tried on her fourth dress and felt a heaviness on her head. The young gentleman said there were too many embellishments and it looked awful, so it wasn't right. Danaya tried on a huge number of dresses that day and was very tired. She counted and realized she had finally chosen number 30. The main character realized that she liked it at first sight and decided that this was exactly the high fashion she had been dreaming of. The little girl saw a picture of sweets and thought that she wanted to rest and eat as many of them as possible. The man invited the young gentleman to check that everything was comfortable. Then he turned to the little girl and invited her to walk to the chair. Hearing this, the main character thought she was being treated like a dog. She walked quickly but stepped on the hem of her dress, got tangled and fell. The maid anxiously asked if everything was all right and if she had hurt herself. She suggested shortening the hem and checking her shoes. At that moment, Danaya thought that what she wanted most right now was a break. The young lady, tired, sat down on a chair and thought with relief that it was finally over. This was exactly what she had been dreaming about all day. Lost in thought, Shisei asked if he should have ordered that last yellow dress. Hearing this, the girl didn't understand what he was talking about. The guy asked why she had such a surprised face and added that he liked the dress she had worn before. The young gentleman announced that the costume designers hadn't left yet and he needed to speak with them. Hearing this, the girl thought she didn't want him to say anything. Danaya counted and decided that she tried on more than 60 dresses in one day. She thought it was even for the best, because the money was being spent merrily and this was another way to destroy this family. The main character believed that those who spend money without counting weaken themselves, and at the same time, she does not lose anything. Haydn asked if she had done a good job, and if she was looking forward to finishing all the dresses she had ordered. The girl replied that, of course, she was waiting, but added that 60 dresses weren't too many. The guard explained that Mr. Shisei had stopped there and added that the Archduke would have ordered more than 100. Hearing this, Danae was surprised and realized she had been right to believe it. She decided that this was a very dangerous opponent, as ruthless as the Archmage Pamela, who had cast her into eternal sleep. Haydn looked at the girl and asked if she was in any pain. She replied that she was worried because she hadn't yet met the Archduke. He reassured her, saying that he was especially attached to his blood relatives. The guard added that he'd heard how much the gentleman cared for his son, Lint. He said he didn't know all the details, but he was certain of one thing. Haydn explained that His Excellency hadn't deliberately kicked Mr. Linte out. He always missed his family and looked everywhere for Mrs. Danae. The girl asked when the Archduke would return. She was told that within a week he would be back and that he was already on his way. Danae thought that a week was not that long and she became curious about what kind of person he would turn out to be. The main character reflected that today was already the 6th day since she ordered all these dresses, and decided that Shisei Asanov really was a scary guy. The sight of all these things only confirmed it. The maid said the outfit suited her very well. The girl wondered what kind of magic had been used, as only a short time had passed, and not all the dresses her brother had ordered were ready. Danae realized how incredible the Asanov family was. Baratheon opened the door and asked if she was there. The maid reminded him that this was Lady Danae's room. He apologized and said he'd knock next time. Hearing this, the main character thought that next time he would most likely enter without a word, because he thought that he already knew her well. The guy said he'd heard about the dress she'd ordered and asked if it was true. Seeing the pile of boxes, he was surprised to see her dressed from head to toe. The girl showed the new dress and asked if it was really beautiful. Hearing no answer, the protagonist thought that perhaps the dress didn't suit her. She decided that the main thing was that she liked it. Danae said that even if Theon thought otherwise, she didn't care. She added that she liked the dress and asked if that wasn't enough. Hearing this, the guy was surprised and asked who told her the dress didn't suit her. He picked her up and loudly declared that it suited her perfectly and that she looked beautiful in it. Danae asked why he looked displeased then. The young gentleman admitted that he simply hadn't bought the dress. She wondered if it really mattered. He replied that for him, it did. Baratheon added that, come to think of it, the dress actually suited her very well, which made him even more angry because the other child had beaten him to it. Hearing this, the main character thought that he had grown physically, but was still a child inside. She decided that even for the sake of revenge, it would be better to appease him first. The little girl stroked the boy's head and told him to calm down. Then she added that of the three, she thought he was the best and strongest, and asked if that was true. Baratheon was delighted and confidently said that it was true. She replied that it was amazing because he was so cool. The guy asked again if it was true and said that he was not that special, but if she thought so, she would believe it. At that moment, the main character thought that he was incredibly simple-minded and decided that he was easy to use. Suddenly, Lucas entered the room and asked what was going on. Theon was indignant at how he could enter the ladies' room without knocking. Hearing this, the little girl thought he should watch himself. Marina said Mr. Lucas knocked and then came in and asked if he had everything ready. He replied that he had, and that was why he had come. Theon exclaimed joyfully that this was excellent and suggested they go. The girl, curious as to where exactly, asked. Lucas explained that they were going to the rose garden, where everything was currently in bloom, and suggested having a light picnic there. Lucas showed her a basket full of food and asked if she needed more. She replied that this was quite enough. The dark-haired guy said that if there wasn't enough food, they would cook more, because everyone would be happy to do their best for Danae. At that moment, the main character thought Lucas Asanov was the kindest and most beautiful, like a flower. But at the same time, he seemed cautious and thoughtful. Danae decided that, like she's number one, Lucas was also someone to be wary of. The little girl asked if they would go just the three of them. Shisei thought for a moment and explained that the other guy was busy. Hearing this, the girl thought it would be a little awkward to go without anyone, since good kids don't abandon their friends. Lucas asked if they were ready to go. The little girl asked if they wanted to go right now. He replied that if they didn't hurry, the roses would wilt. She countered that flowers couldn't wilt that quickly. The main character couldn't understand why she felt such delight when looking at such beautiful flowers. She decided it was their incredible beauty. Theon said they were just plants and asked what was so special about them. The girl replied that he simply had no sense of beauty. Lucas called them and said that everything was ready, suggesting that they come quickly. Danae asked if she could find out something and inquired how they had been accepted into the Archduchy. The blonde guy was surprised she was asking. She replied that she was just curious and asked if it was a taboo subject. Lucas objected and said that wasn't the point. He added that she was the first person to ask such a question. Theon said the story of their adoption was so well known that everyone knew it. Lucas added that there wasn't a single nobleman who didn't know it. They were adopted 10 years ago, when he was 10, and Theon and Shais were 8. The guy said that about 15 years ago, the magical barrier of the Misty Mountains weakened, and then the problems began. Because of this, demons appeared in the northern part of the continent, and several villages were destroyed. His village was one of them, and he miraculously survived and ended up in an orphanage. Danae asked if there were other children in the orphanage and why the Archduke had chosen Lucas. Lucas was about to answer, but Baratheon interrupted, claiming it was all about ability. He explained that Lucas had a remarkable talent, rumors of which had circulated, and when they reached the old man, he adopted him. The black-haired boy looked at his brother with displeasure. Theon asked what was wrong, since Danae would find out anyway. The guy said Lucas was a genius, who, once he'd seen something, never forgot it. He added that he could memorize even a thick book in one sitting. Hearing this, the girl asked in surprise if all the pages were true. Lucas replied that Theon was a swordmaster. Danae screamed and asked if Baratheon was truly a swordmaster. The fair-haired boy looked at her and asked what had happened to her. The main character explained that a swordmaster is the strongest swordsman who fights by pouring all his aura into the blade. Theon said there were other masters. Hearing this, the girl thought it couldn't be true. She remembered how, in her past life, she had cried before Master Rian because she had struggled to master the skills. The master said she needed to keep her back straighter because her aura was too weak and she couldn't concentrate. He believed she had little training and still had a long way to go. So the main character was shocked that Baratheon had such a skill. She realized she thought he was just a strong but loud idiot. Theon, looking at her, asked what was happening to her and asked her to calm down. Watching them, Lucas thought that the two of them were having fun and wondered if the picnic had had something to do with it. The guy said he was still a fool, but still her friend. The girl asked if that meant she was stupid. He replied that that wasn't what he meant at all. At that moment, Shisei approached them. Danae asked what was wrong, as he looked tired. The guy replied that it was nothing special, and added that what she wanted to ask was more important. He asked what was bothering her. The little girl said she was curious and asked why the Archduke had adopted Shisei. Instead of answering, the boy used magic to shower the girl with rose petals. At that moment, she thought he was using magic without incantations, and given the power he felt, that was simply impossible. The girl screamed and said he couldn't be an ordinary person. He replied that he understood perfectly well what she was thinking. Theon added that Shisei had earned the title of sage, meaning he was a high-level mage. He graduated from the magic tower with good grades. Hearing this, the protagonist was surprised by his skill with magic and thought his skills and knowledge were inferior to her own. She couldn't understand why the magical barrier had weakened then. Lucas asked Shisei how it went, but he didn't answer. At that moment, the little girl asked what had happened. The young gentleman replies that children don't need to know. Danae cries out indignantly and says he's treating her like a child, even though she too has a right to know the truth. Shisei touches her forehead and calmly says that in the Empire, people are considered adults only after 18. Therefore, to him, she is a child no matter what. The young lady replies that he's overreacting since he himself called them comrades. The guy smirks and says that if she's upset, she should grow up soon. Hearing this, the main character thinks the twins are terribly disgusting, and it's at moments like these that they're most alike. Danae turns to Lucas, but her brother only says that the little lady came here solely for the cookies. The little girl looks at the boys, who are standing a little further away, and whispering something. She becomes curious about what their business is, since they are keeping it so secret. Haydn turns to the young master and mistress and informs them that the Archduke will soon arrive. Shisei notes with surprise that it happened sooner than he expected. The guard adds that, in his opinion, he returned earlier because of the news he heard. Theon asks his brother how he likes the girl, and remarks that she's noticeably prettier since arriving. His brother agrees, saying she's doing quite well. At this point, the maid cries out and announces that there's very little time left until arrival. She offers to leave the linens with the maid and asks everyone to hurry and take their seats. Danae looks at what is happening in surprise and does not understand at all what is going on. Marina tells the lady there's no need to hide like that and assures her that the dress Shisei bought her suits her very well. In her opinion, the little lady looks truly beautiful. The young lady recalls Haddon's words about the Archduke being a man with a special view of family. She thinks she's wearing a dress that perfectly accentuates her figure. The protagonist decides she can walk forward boldly, shoulders squared. She convinces herself that she's not afraid at all and isn't in the least intimidated by the Archduke. Danae immediately realizes this is a disaster because despite her determination, she's incredibly nervous. She grabs Lucas's hand and offers to go with him. The little girl keeps hiding behind Lucas, thinking it will make her less noticeable. She sees all the maids and servants standing around waiting for their master and decides he must be a very scary man. The main character thinks that what has been done can no longer be undone, but she is frightened by the thought of what will happen if he gets angry and asks about the 60 dresses he bought. Lucas reports that the Archduke has already arrived and greets His Excellency. Shisei says he is glad to see him back, and his brother adds that, thank the gods, he looks safe and sound. When the protagonist sees the stranger, she becomes curious if he is a descendant of Pamela. She notices his violet eyes and a strong resemblance to his father. Esenov turns to the girl and asks if she is Danae. The young lady quietly confirms that she is. A few minutes later, the girl doesn't know how to feel about this. She thought her grandfather had been looking for her for a long time, imagining a touching reunion, but his reaction was cold. The Archduke asks the little girl what she likes. Danae doesn't understand the question, and the young gentleman explains that he's talking about food. Danae says she likes meat and chocolate chip cookies. Asenov replies that it will be on the menu then and orders them to prepare for dinner. The servant replies that he will carry out the order and then asks if His Excellency's journey went well. The little girl asks Lucas if the Archduke really invited her to dinner. He confirms that she understood correctly. The main character doesn't know if she'll have to eat alone with this man and is worried about whether she'll be okay. Sometime later, the meal with the Archduke begins. The girl recalls that this is exactly how she imagined the meeting when she heard her grandfather was looking for her. He seems younger than expected, and most importantly, completely unlike Pamela. Danae thinks that if it were the other way around, she would be angry, not touched. The table is too quiet, and it's unnerving. She notices that at first during the meal he doesn't say a word and simply eats. The sound of knife and fork seems deafening to her, and she wonders if the invitation to dinner literally means just sitting and eating. The main character understands that this could drive her crazy and decides to start the conversation first. Danae asks the master why he suddenly decided to find her, since he had not looked for her father or herself for 13 years. At this point, she thinks she said it all too bluntly and is surprised that his expression hasn't changed. The Archduke replies that it's not a matter of reluctance, but of the impossibility of finding her. He adds that Linte himself didn't want it. Grandfather recalls that on the day of his coming of age at 18 years old, Linte asked for only one gift. The Archduke said that one could wish for anything at the ceremony. Upon hearing this, the boy asked if it was true. His father confirmed it. Then the son, surprised, asked if this was a joke and declared that he wanted a country and wanted to see the outside world. He asked his father for freedom. The Archduke explains that his son decided to live not as an heir but as a free man, and after that, he never looked for his child. Hearing this, the main character thinks it's the height of recklessness. A sane heir wouldn't do such a thing, and she thinks a normal father would scold her for such words. Danae looks at the gentleman and understands that he only seems cold on the surface. Grandfather says that a year ago, a traveling mercenary brought a letter from Linte. After reading the part about the demon attack, he realized it was his son's last message. Much of the letter was written unevenly, but it spoke of Danae. The mercenary apologized for the late delivery and explained that he was delayed due to an encounter with a demon and the plague. Grandfather says he immediately went to the village where she lived but didn't find her. Since then, he's been to every possible location, even if it was just rumors. Eventually, Danae was found in a hotel. Grandfather asked if she too wanted freedom. Hearing this, the protagonist feels goosebumps run down her spine. She recalls the hellish days with her monstrous foster parents. The girl realizes that she has only one answer and asks if the Archduke knows how she lived. Danae says she doesn't want to return to the outside world. The gentleman adds that he forgot to say something important and suggests calling him Grandpa. Meanwhile, in the demon world, Mr. Balanche asks the monster about the search and whether they found it. He replies that it seems they finally have. Hearing this, the master cries out and says that the demon king Danae has finally opened her eyes. However, the demon reports a problem, saying that the Demon King's energy can be felt in the Winter Mansion. The master, irritated, asks what nonsense he's talking about. At this point, Danae says she's not lying. Shisei smiles, apologizes, and explains that he never doubted her for a second. He adds that his own granddaughter is different, after all. The little girl screams and asks them to stop laughing. She looks at the servants and doesn't understand why everyone looks so busy. Danae asks Theon if he thinks something is happening in the mansion. He explains that it's because of the high-ranking gathering. My brother says this is an annual gathering of all the Asenov family relatives. Important family matters are discussed there, including the future successor. Hearing this, the main character wonders why they're even discussing it. He looks at her in amazement and teases her about how ambitious she is. Danae asks what he means. He mimics her and says that since she's the successor, there's no point in discussing anything at all. The little girl objects and says that's not true. She believes Lucas should be the successor, since he's the eldest son, and that's natural in the Empire. The girl adds that since her father died, in her opinion, Lucas should become the next Archduke. Theon says he thought she was smart, but it seems he was wrong. The young lady admits she's not pleased to hear that. The young gentleman asks her to listen carefully and calls her stupid. He asks if she is the Archduke's biological granddaughter and whether an adopted child without blood can compete with her. The protagonist understands what he's getting at. She recalls Marina's words about how ever since Lucas came of age, they'd said he was only acting as a temporary successor. The girl realizes that her fall into the water and near death were connected to her status as an heiress. She has enough experience from her past life, where she died after receiving an unwanted position. Danae thinks that becoming the successor will make it easier for her to destroy the Asanov family. If she needs the crown, she'll close her eyes and take this chance. The protagonist asks what will happen if Lucas hates her. Theon wonders why he should hate her at all. She explains that he was removed because of her appearance. The young lady thinks that if she turns a genius like Lucas into an enemy, her plan might fail. The young gentleman objects, saying it's the other way around. He believes Lucas will be grateful, since the inheritance includes an unwanted marriage. Danae is surprised. The young man explains that there were rumors of Lucas marrying a girl from his own line for the sake of inheritance. That would automatically resolve the issue of lineage. Danae understands that this sounds logical, but she finds it cruel to decide someone's fate in such a way. Theon agrees and asks if she thinks the same. Baratheon says that's the life of a nobleman. After these words, the girl approaches and pokes him in the cheek, which confuses him. She asks if he is really Theon, and admits that she did not expect such words from him. The boy indignantly asks if she thinks he's a fool, and declares that he knows a lot too. Danae offers to explain Lohenkrantz, multi-dimensional control. Hearing this, Theon is amazed and asks how she knows such complex things. Danae says she read about it in a book, remembering how the master explained it to her in a past life. The boy doubts it and asks if she's lying. The girl insists she learned everything from a book and proposes a bet. If she wins, he'll write his name with his butt in front of the high-ranking guests. Theon asks why he should even agree to this. Danae teases him, and he slams the table, declares he'd rather die than show hesitation, and accepts the challenge. The main character says that she will then ask Haydn to bring a book from the library. Walking down the hallway, Danae thinks everything went perfectly, since she won the bet. Theon, meanwhile, is reading a book and can't believe she was right. Danae decides to personally test Lucas's reaction and knocks on his office door. Seeing her, Lucas asks what happened and if Theon and Shisei are fooling around again. The young lady smiles and says she's paid him back for their teasing in the rose garden. She adds that she won't disturb him, as he has a lot to do. Lucas notices that she was with Theon during the day and asks if she overheard anything. She agrees, thinking he's very perceptive. The young gentleman says that Theon is too talkative and advises not to pay attention, because everything will settle down in time. The little girl asks if it's not a shame, since he was preparing to become the successor from the moment he was adopted. The Archduke's successor becomes the junior Archduke of House Asanov. Danae understands why this position is being fought over, as it grants absolute power. She thinks that the collateral line of the family also coveted this position and tried to marry their daughters to Lucas. Lucas says that he is, on the contrary, grateful and does not want to marry for the sake of inheritance. Danae replies that she heard this from Theon as well, and admits that she herself does not want to be the successor, considering Lucas more suitable. After these words, she wonders what he will say. Lucas calls her a caring child and says he understands her intentions. The main character doesn't understand why he took her words that way, but she believes that the strategy worked anyway. Lucas asks Danae to come closer and whether the urgency of the situation bothers her. He says it's right that she came to talk. He takes her hand and tells her not to hide, because this is the Asanov family's way of dealing with difficulties. Lucas adds that uncertainty is normal, and that he, Baratheon, and Shisei will help her. Danae asks if this is true, and admits that she was curious about his warm attitude from the very beginning. She says she feels like an intruder and is surprised by their kindness. She worries that he might be risking his position. Lucas strokes her head and says that the Archduke is their savior, and Danae is a precious treasure for him. Hearing this, the girl realizes she's never heard such words before. She remembers her savior, Mr. Ryan. The protagonist reminds herself that her goal is to destroy the Asanoff family, and wonders what will happen if she chooses this world. Danae decides that she must become stronger and regain the power of her past life, because danger can come at any moment. She thinks she's been given a second life and won't let herself die this time. But she understands she'll use the easiest paths to become stronger than others. The girl decides to use the Master's mysterious pills to enhance her body and mind. With their help and training, she will be able to attain magical powers that take others years to attain. Danae realized she'd have to prepare the pills herself, but to remember the right ingredients, she'd need to consult a herbal encyclopedia. Halfway through the book, the girl realized she'd finally found what she was looking for. She remembered the plant, melibin, and it was mentioned that it grows on the northern continent. Danae was perplexed by the lack of information in the book. The north seemed too vast, and searching for herbs was like searching for a needle in a haystack. At that moment, she wanted to become a bird, to look at everything from above and find a plant from the sky. The protagonist became curious about how Mr. Ryan had learned the recipe for the medicine and the methods of magical training. She recalled how she had once searched for a book containing similar knowledge, but much of what he had taught her had not been described in any work. Danae realized that, if you think about it, Mr. Ryan was a complete enigma. He almost never talked about himself, and, from the very beginning, limited himself to the bare essentials. She remembered how she had once considered him a vicious criminal with a dark past, but in reality, he turned out to be a great sage. Now, however, she understood that she would never be able to learn more about him. Lost things never return. The next day, Marina approached the lady and reminded her that she had an appointment with Mr. Shees today. Hearing this, the main character realized she'd completely forgotten. She screamed, terrified that she was late, and couldn't understand how this could have happened. The maid tried to calm her down. Danae realized she'd been completely preoccupied with thoughts of the pills and the master. Besides, it was she who'd suggested meeting today. The girl thought that time was clearly of the essence for Shise. She wondered what would happen if she canceled the meeting and decided to accept any reproach as her own fault. Shise glanced at his watch and said she was late. Seeing him already there, Danae thought things were really bad. He'd arrived before her. Danae screamed and asked how he could show up without knocking. He asked if she thought he was stupid, and if he seemed unmannered. He eventually suggested blaming her for everything, since she hadn't heard him knock loudly. The girl realized she was wrong, apologized, and felt ashamed when she realized he was right. The guy sat down on a chair and asked what she wanted to meet him about. At that moment, Danae was worried he might get angry and almost forgot the main thing. The reason for the meeting was about outfits. The girl knew she'd be an eyesore at the sideline meeting and couldn't afford to look unkempt. She figured there would be people there irritated at not being able to put her to sleep forever. Danae considered showing them the greatness and nobility of Archduke Asanoff's granddaughter and let them sit and rage. But, at the same time, she understood that she had no attachment to this family. Danae began to explain the reason for the meeting, but the guy interrupted her and suggested that she speak faster, saying that he was listening. The girl looked at him and said something was wrong with him. She'd felt the same way in the rose garden, and she asked if he was in any pain. She's replied that he was just a little tired. Hearing this, the girl asked in surprise, why? The young gentleman said the captured man was beginning to speak. Danae asked who he was talking about, but he replied that it was nothing special. The girl screamed and asked what he was hiding. He didn't answer, and Danae assumed the words escaped him because he was tired. She became curious about this prisoner. She remembered how, on her first day in this house, she thought they had caught the leader of the attack on the carriage. Danae thought that Shees was currently conducting an interrogation and was probably using advanced mind-affecting magic that required a huge amount of mana. The girl grabbed the guy's hand and pulled him along. He asked in surprise what she was doing, but she continued walking forward silently. Danae mused that even though he was considered her #1 fear, she still wondered why he was so persistent in trying to find out the identity of the one who tried to take her life. She understood that in such a state, she could not calmly talk to him about the outfit. Danae pointed to the bed and cried out, asking him to lie down. He was surprised and asked why the bed and what she was planning. The girl asked if he hadn't come today to help her and suggested that he lie down quickly. Shise looked at him in surprise, but Danae had already climbed onto the bed and was again insistently calling him to lie down faster. The guy lay down and reminded her that she called him for a conversation, after which he asked what she was doing now. Danae stroked his back and told him to sleep soundly, as if he were in the yard or garden. He asked if she was singing a lullaby and inquired if she knew how old he was. The girl pointed her finger at his mouth, asking for silence, and laid him down more evenly again. She said she was still too thin, and asked if she was trying to eat properly. Danae wondered if he was planning to eat her when she gained weight. The guy replied that no one was going to eat it because it was tasteless, and added that he simply didn't like its terrible condition. Danae said it didn't look so bad now. He countered that it was still terrible, and she replied that it wasn't usually that bad. A few minutes later, Danae noticed that Shizei had finally fallen asleep. Marina was surprised, saying it was the first time she'd seen him fall asleep next to another person. Hearing this, the main character thought that he was a person who clearly defined his boundaries. Danae looked at him and thought that in his sleep, he looked like an angel, and perhaps the most handsome man in the empire until he opened his mouth. Marina said she was pleased to see it. Danae agreed and wondered how much better it would be if his face remained so angelic even in normal time. The maid smiled and explained that she was not referring to appearance, but to the relationship between them. Marina said that next to Danae, Mr. Shizei becomes completely different, as do Mr. Lucas and Mr. Baratheon, even though they pretend it's not so. Hearing this, Danae thought that she knew almost nothing about these three except their appearance, but to those around her, the difference between them was obvious. Marina said that before the mistress's arrival, the mansion was a cold and empty place, but now the girl is like a warm sun. A few days later, Danae went out onto the balcony to get some fresh air, just as a gathering of the Asanov family's relatives was about to begin. She was astonished by the number of guests. Marina asked if she was surprised by the noise, adding that, by the Archduke's will, outsiders were rarely allowed into the Winter Palace. The maid said that there might not be another opportunity to get in here, so guests often come in groups and ask to be let in all at once. Danae asked if this was impudence. Marina replied that it was more likely ignorance, but they couldn't be kicked out, so all such guests were housed in the annex. Danae thought that the outsiders had been completely separated from the main building, and Archduke Asanov, as expected, had left no loopholes. Marina said that at the meeting all eyes would be on the lady as the family's successor, which could lead to trouble. Therefore, it would be best to stay away from the annex until the high-ranking officials' meeting was over. Danae agreed, thinking that if there was no need to meet, then there was no reason to run into each other. But she understood that the guests were still breaking the rules. The red-haired woman loudly asked who the black-haired girl was, declaring that she was seeing her for the first time, and asked if she was a maid. Danae was surprised by the rude tone, and realized that the omission was that the guests were allowed to leave the annex. She smiled, apologized, and quietly asked Marina who the woman was. Marina replied that she was a woman from the Osset sideline, known for her loose tongue, and that she seemed to have simply gotten lost. Danae thought the woman knew everything perfectly well and was only pretending. She decided she had come specifically to say nasty things to the true successor. The main character believed that in such a case, a person usually receives in return what he gives. Danae told Marina that the guest seemed to have lost her way and offered to accompany her. The woman asked in surprise if she was being kicked out. Danae turned to Marina and offered to explain that she was only being returned to where she belonged. The maid said she would pass it on. The lady retorted that she was just out for a stroll and asked again if that was how guests were received here. Danae suggested telling her that the outbuilding had a separate walking path. Hearing this, the woman became very angry and screamed, demanding to know her limits and asking what kind of antics were happening right under her nose. Danae calmly replied that she too should know her limits, because humiliating others does not make a person better. Suddenly, a lady in a red dress approached them and stopped the red-haired woman with a gesture. The stranger apologized and said that her younger sister was still a child, which is why she was so rude. Danae replied that she herself had behaved childishly. The woman thanked her for her generosity and introduced herself as Kana Osset. At that moment, Danae thought that Kana seemed like a good person and, unlike her sister, had manners. Danae introduced herself as Danae Asanov. Kana said she knew this because of her violet eyes, which only Asanov's direct descendants possess, and added that she was much talked about. Danae was surprised, and Kana said that many people would like to meet her. Kana added that now that Dana was part of the family, they should get along like sisters. Theon suddenly appeared and lifted Danae into his arms. He asked Kana why she was there and how she dared approach the main building. The woman apologized and said that she was walking along her usual path and accidentally came across the main building. Shise wondered if she couldn't come up with a better excuse. He suggested that Denia leave, saying the atmosphere there was unpleasant. She asked if this was the same person speaking. Denia screamed, demanding that he let her go, but he continued to walk with her in his arms. She asked why he was ignoring her. When she tried to hit him, she was surprised at how hard his body was. Shise said she was antagonizing him and asked why she was upset. Denia indignantly asked what kind of rudeness he had just shown. Denia explained that nothing bad had happened, as she had only said hello politely. The guy smiled, and she asked why he was laughing. Shise asked if she knew who the woman was. Denia replied that she knew her name, Kana Oset. She said that Kana Oset was one of the main candidates for a bride for brother Lucas, and asked if Denia knew how much that family had been pestering him. He added that they were constantly playing tricks on each other, trying to make their daughter his bride, but noted that anything can happen. Denia thought that if even Baratheon sometimes fell silent, it meant they had done something truly terrible. She said that her very presence here meant they hadn't given up yet, and he noted their tenacity. Denia asked why. Shise hugged Denia tightly, making it hard for her to breathe. He told her to be careful outside, then added that it would be better for her not to go out at all, asking if she understood. The girl asked, surprised, if that was really necessary. He answered in the affirmative and explained that she should avoid people on the sidelines. Denia said she'd heard that avoiding and hiding wasn't the Asanov family's way. Shise asked who said that, and she replied, Lucas. Shise said that his brother, by pretending to be tough, had ruined all their efforts. Denia didn't understand what he meant, but he didn't explain, instead declaring that, in times of danger, the best thing for the Asanov family was to run and hide. He added that it was 100 times better than being caught and dying, and said that she should not go out at all for a while. After that, Denia spent every day idle. Kana's words proved true. Marina sent her daily requests for meetings. Denia understood that there were reasons for interest, because the Archduke Asanov's granddaughter had suddenly appeared. She didn't know who she could date and who she couldn't, so she decided not to date anyone and turned everyone down. Ultimately, it seemed as if she had listened to Baratheon's words. Denia noticed that she had been lying down all day, and her back had begun to ache. Moreover, the more she slept, the more drowsy she became. Suddenly, she saw a bird flapping against the window, and, curious, opened it. As soon as the window opened, the bird immediately flew into the room, and Denia did not understand what was happening to her. The bird called the girl his king and said that they had finally met. Hearing this, Denia thought that only one creature had called her, that the very same scoundrel who had mistaken her for the demon king and plunged her into eternal sleep. Denia asked if she had misheard, since birds cannot speak. The bird called her its king again, introduced itself as Blanche, and said that because of her powerful and beautiful magic, it had left its post as the Demon King. Hearing this, Denia said that her hand accidentally twitched, and the next moment she threw the bird out of the room. The bird stated that her temperament had not changed, and that this was admirable, and then added that she was the first person to do this to her. Hearing this, Denia couldn't understand why he was so happy. She asked who he was and admitted she had no idea what he was talking about. The bird smiled and said she knew she remembered everything. He claimed it was he who awakened her and restored her lost memory. Denia screamed and asked him again what he had just said. The bird replied that he had undergone numerous rituals to bring back his king, and had only been able to do so 13 years ago, so his memory had only recently awakened. The bird admitted that even in his wildest dreams, he couldn't have imagined his king would be reborn as a descendant of that vile family of mages. But he smiled and said that the main thing was that she had returned. Suddenly, the bird turned into a boy and asked with a smile, "Isn't that so?" Denia looked at the child and called him a brat. He replied that there was nothing he could do, as the magical barrier was so powerful that it had taken all his strength to get past it. The boy added that it will only take a few months for him to regain his previous appearance. Denia asked in surprise if he had really spent 500 years for her rebirth, considering it a mad obsession. She reminded him that she had already said that she would not become the Demon King, and decided that he should have realized this back when she ran away from him. Denia realized that it was thanks to Blanche that she received a new life, but she could not forget that in her past life she died senselessly precisely because of him. She realized that running away wasn't an option, and turning to him, she commanded as his king. In her mind, she decided that if she couldn't escape, she could at least get rid of him. Denia ordered the boy to return behind the barrier. He looked surprised and said it was problematic, causing her to ask why. The boy explained that he had used all his magic to get through the barrier, and now he had no strength to go back. Hearing this, Danae was confused, but remembered that there was another way to get rid of him and decided to give a new order. She told him to find a plant for her, thinking that this would help her find peace. Danae added that the plant was not easy to find and decided that by the time he managed to do so, he would already have enough strength to go to the Misty Mountains. After this, Danae went to see Archduke Asenov, who wanted to meet her. She knew from rumors that he was a real workaholic. She remembered Theon's words about how, after his adoption, the Archduke had spent his days sitting in his study, and she was surprised that he had not yet become attached to the chair. Haydn and Marina believed he immersed himself in work to numb the pain of losing his family. Danae decided the truth was already clear to her. Grandfather apologized for the wait, and she replied that the reason he'd called her was more important. The Archduke said he'd heard about her clash with the Oset children. Danae was surprised and realized the news had reached the very top. She explained that nothing serious had happened. One of them had been rude, the other polite, and she had responded in kind. Danae asked if the Oset family was truly powerful. The Archduke confirmed this, but noted that they were still a sideline. Danae thought there was an insurmountable wall of power between the front line and the sideline. She added that she'd heard about Lucas's difficulties with Oset and that they still hadn't given up on their plans. The Archduke asked in surprise who had said such nonsense. Danae thought for a moment and decided not to say that she had heard this from Theon, realizing that this information was not intended for her. She replied that she'd merely heard rumors. Grandfather said she shouldn't pay attention to such things, adding that he was glad there were no problems, and then moved on to the main reason for the meeting. Danae asked what was wrong. The Archduke replied that it was the key to the treasury, which responded only to members of the Asenov family and opened with a single mental call. Danae became intrigued by the treasury and imagined mountains of gold and silver. A warm feeling overwhelmed her. Now she understood what it meant to be Asenov's successor. Grandfather said that this was a gift for her personally, not for a future successor, and that she could use the treasury in any case. Danae asked if he considered Lucas a more suitable successor. He replied that if that was the case, he was mistaken again and asked her to listen carefully. The Archduke said that the elders might doubt her worth and demand a trial, since they supported Lucas and would not back down easily. He promised to do everything possible to approve her, but emphasized that any outcome was not her fault. Danae noted that if she failed the test, the rumors would disgrace the entire Asenov family. Grandfather replied that it didn't matter, because the main thing was to remain yourself. He added that he understood her fear of looking stupid, but there was another way, and asked if she liked Lucas. Danae asked in surprise if he was proposing to marry Lucas and put him in the place of Archduke, and if he really thought that was what she wanted. The Archduke said that if she didn't mind, it wouldn't be a bad option. Danae objected, reminding him that Lucas was her brother, albeit not by blood. He agreed with her, and Danae thought with relief that she had barely endured this conversation. Then Grandfather suggested Theon or Shisei. Danae declared that she would be the successor, otherwise Lucas would have to marry for convenience, which he didn't want. She confidently said that she would simply become the successor and did not see anything difficult in it. Danae decided that she would save Lucas from an unwanted marriage, attract him to her side, and gain the right to manage the family's affairs. She considered this to be a sufficient reason to wear the ridiculous crown of the cursed Asenov family. The Archduke said he respected her choice and would make Lucas her adjutant for the duration of the trial. Danae thought that the adjutant genius was the best news of the day, second only to the treasury with unimaginable riches. When she saw the diamond ring, she decided that it was not the most luxurious, but it was beautiful, and that someday she would also get one like that, the dream of her whole life. Danae noted that the treasures were clearly not of local origin, which was quite fitting for the unique Archduchy of Asenov. Suddenly she saw the bag and screamed, recognizing it as her own. She wondered why it was there. Danae assumed Pamela had taken it as a trophy, after he'd put her into eternal sleep. She remembered carrying the bag that day and assumed magic had preserved its contents. She carefully opened the bag and clearly recited the spell. The seal was removed successfully. Danae thought that the master would be very angry if he found out that she had used his name. She looked at the necklace and remembered the master. When he was alive, the stone on it had shone a transparent blue. In her mind, Danae asked the master to help her complete her revenge and saw in the bag the medicine he had made was still there. She realized that thanks to magic, Everything remained unchanged, as did the properties of the pills. Denaya decided the training session was over. It looked like she'd simply fallen asleep, and it was time for her to leave. She smiled, feeling that she had regained her magic, and with a new soul and new pain, she would begin her revenge. Opening the door, Danae saw her brothers and did not understand why they were calling her. She cried out, asking what she was doing there. Denaya asked him not to shake her, and said nothing unusual had happened. He asked why she spent 3 days there then. Theon shouted that he was an idiot, and admitted that he would have turned the entire empire upside down if he had known she was there. He reminded them that not everyone could enter the treasury. Lucas asked if she was okay and if anything had happened. Danae replied that she was just looking at the treasures. Theon wondered if she'd been admiring them for 3 days straight. Danae wondered if her magic was nearly gone and the training had taken longer than expected. Shisei demanded an explanation. Denaya said she had brought them gifts and offered to accept them. She explained that her grandfather had given her permission to dispose of the treasures, and she had been choosing gifts for each day, without noticing how time had passed. Denaya smiled, realizing that her improvisation had worked. Shisei suddenly flicked her forehead. Denaya was indignant and hid behind Lucas. He asked her if she thought that gifts would save her from being reprimanded, and asked where she had seen anyone who spent 3 days choosing gifts. Lucas asked Shisei to calm down and said that the main thing was that she was alive and well, adding that they had been very worried all these days. Denaya apologized and admitted that she had not expected this, thinking that the training would not take 3 days. She asked about the meeting of elders. Lucas replied that the Archduke had appointed her successor, but the elders insisted on a trial. Shisei handed her an envelope and said that it was a task from the elders. The next day, her grandfather told her that these were the main documents she needed to know. Denaya was surprised by their number, but he explained that they would help her pass the inspection. As the Archduke had promised, Lucas became her adjutant and assured her there would be no problems. Danae thought there already were, but he promised to explain everything. She looked at the volume of documents and decided that she would be tired before the end of the explanation. Danae didn't understand why Lucas was so excited and thought that he would gain his freedom when she became the successor. She admitted that Lucas was a true genius because he explained everything very clearly, even territorial issues. He explained that the Archduke's main task is investment, and he will have to earn it his entire life due to the situation in the north. 500 years ago, demons devastated the northern lands where their base was located. Everything was restored, but the damage was never fully compensated. Lucas explained that the costs fell on Asanov as the lands were under their management. Danae realized that because of the barren lands, they had to buy resources from outside. Lucas added that prices are constantly changing, and the upkeep of the Shisei Magic Tower and the Knights of Hirden is entirely covered by the Archduchy. Denaya concluded that money was disappearing unnoticed, and that she needed to save up. Lucas praised her for her resourcefulness. He said the elders had allocated some of the funds to her and wanted to see growth within 3 months, otherwise the test would be failed. The sum was 1 billion gold, which Lucas called small but significant. He warned that it was easy to lose everything in investments and advised people to think carefully. Lucas suggested looking through the ledger of past investments. Denaya asked if she could make an announcement. She admitted that she doesn't understand much about business and wants to get suggestions from experts to choose the best one. Lucas was surprised and praised the idea. Denaya thought it would attract entrepreneurs from all over the country. She understood that there would be scammers, so she decided to check everything carefully and manage the funds in her own way. Lucas said he would help her and reminded her that the social season would begin at the end of the trial. He explained that it was an annual gathering of nobles in the capital to celebrate the founding of the country and receive the imperial family. Danae said she wanted to go. Lucas smiled and suggested asking her grandfather for permission. He added that participation was not mandatory, but if it was her request, the Archduke would most likely agree. The next day, Danae thought about his words. Not knowing what to do, she asked her grandfather to go to the capital for the social season, and he immediately agreed. Danae was surprised by his easy decision, and he said that he didn't mind if that's what she wanted. She thought he had no intention of going and offered to stay if he was busy. The Archduke firmly declared that they would go. Danae quietly thanked him, deciding that a trip after the exam would be an excellent idea. She added that she had a request and admitted that she couldn't dance, although the party required it. Grandfather said that then she would need someone to teach her to dance. At that moment, Shisei entered the office, apologized, and addressed His Excellency, reminding him of yesterday's conversation. But suddenly, he noticed the gentleman looking at him strangely and, perplexed, asked what had happened. The Archduke turns to Shise and says that he is counting on his help. A few days into training, the boy irritably asks how many times he has to repeat the same thing. Denaya replies that she simply doesn't understand how to do it correctly. At this moment, the protagonist clearly realizes that Denaya Asanov is a complete idiot. And in Shise's eyes, she looks downright upset. The guy tells her she's too independent. Upon hearing this, Denaya immediately asks if that's a bad thing. He explains that this is usually a great virtue. But in dance, you can't think only about yourself. After all, it's two people dancing, and without synchronization with your partner, nothing will work. Denaya replies that she finds it hard to believe, because he himself, in her opinion, does not have the necessary skills, although he dances well. Hearing this, the guy asks her to just shut up and lightly pinches her cheek. Shise lifts the girl up and tells her that if she can't do it, she should just stand on his feet, and it will look like she's dancing on her own. Danae immediately asks what would happen if she danced with someone else. The guy asks in surprise whether she is going to dance with another partner, and adds that the Archduke is unlikely to allow it. At that moment, the door bursts open, and Theon bursts into the room. He shouts that he heard she was learning to dance from that scoundrel and demands an explanation. Shise asks with displeasure whether it is necessary to burst in so noisily, and then sarcastically remarks that everything happened exactly as the fool Theon heard. Theon snaps and demands that his name not be mangled, then orders his brother to shut up because no one asked his opinion. Danae thinks her head is going to explode from the arguing between these twins. Theon turns to the little girl and asks if she really thought he couldn't dance. Shise immediately admonishes him and asks him to keep his voice down. Shise tells Danae that due to the unexpected invasion, it's best to call it a day. Theon immediately asks if he's the one he just called an intruder. Shise asks if his brother understands the meaning of the word. Theon replies that he does, and a moment later indignantly asks if he's being mocked. Shise notes that he's catching on faster than expected, which is already progress. Theon asks what else he's going to tell his older brother. Danae wonders when this will all end, because the situation is becoming increasingly tense. Danae announces she's leaving. Theon immediately asks where she's going, and notices her legs are in terrible condition. He suggests she just say the word, and he'll take her wherever she wants. The girl thanks him and wonders how he noticed. Theon only smiles. Danae asks him to take her to the garden first, but, looking out the window, she notices a bird calling her its king. Danae screams and asks to be carried to her room. Hearing this, her brother asks if she wants to go back to her room. She replies that she's going to rest, and he wonders why she screamed like that. Danae thinks this could all end in disaster. She says she wants to sleep, sends Theon and Shise away, then opens the window, through which a bird flies in and transforms into a child. Blanche asks why she's sighing so heavily. Danae orders him not to speak to anyone under any circumstances. He assures her he'll remember. Suddenly, the boy shows her a bouquet of the very flowers she wanted. Danae, surprised, asks if he managed to find them. He replies that for Danae's sake, he stayed up all night looking for them on the southern side of the Misty Mountains, near the weakened magical barrier, so there were no problems. Blanche adds that there are a lot of flowers there, and he has only brought a small part of them so far. Danae thinks that the south side is where she lived with the master, and asks how many flowers there are there. The boy replies that it is more than this room can accommodate and asks if more is needed. Danae asks to bring 10 times more, and thinks that if she makes pills out of them, she will be able to restore her strength to the level of her previous battles with Blanche. The boy asks if he can stay with her if he brings everything. Danae, surprised, asks what the sudden conversation is about. Danae abruptly changes the subject, saying she heard about the barrier weakening 15 years ago, and asks if it's related to the demon world. He replies that it's the work of black magic. Danae is surprised and asks if he's referring to the same power that awakened her. He confirms and explains that to influence the world beyond the barrier, it had to be broken. Danae thinks that perhaps the demons started appearing because of her, and because of this, many people died or were injured. She realizes that Lucas, Shise, and countless others have no idea how many lives have been harmed, and she sees herself as the cause of all these tragedies. Danae reflects on how she has simply been trying to survive all this time, following the master's teachings. The master said she should never become someone who harms others and should never use her knowledge to put anyone into eternal sleep. So when Pamela attacked her, she didn't fight back. Danae believes she could win if she fought seriously, but then many would bleed to death, which is contrary to the master's teachings. She understands that despair will change nothing. She decides that it is better to spend her energy on correcting the past and asks Blanche to teach her how to restore the barrier. He replies that the barrier wasn't created by demons, so he doesn't know a way. Danae asks if it's possible to at least keep demons out, but he says that's impossible due to their instinctive nature. Danae offers him to deal with the demons that have already crossed the barrier. He replies that he will only do so if she allows him to remain by her side. Danae asks if he's bargaining with her, then agrees but sets conditions. He will appear as a bird in front of people and will only speak to her in private. She asks if he can keep this. Blanche agrees without hesitation. At that moment, Marina enters the room, admires the bird, and wonders if such a plump creature could even fly. Danae thinks they almost got caught and explains that the bird became attached to the people and did not want to fly away. Marina smiles and says the bird seems to like its owner. Danae agrees and thinks he's really pursuing her because of this attraction. Danae asks what Marina is holding in her hands. She replies that the ads worked and shows a huge number of offers. Danae thinks that she will show the elders what she is capable of, and among this mountain of letters, she will definitely find her golden goose. Following the announcement, many proposals came in, but none yet seemed suitable for testing. The next morning, Danae continues to read the letters from the moment she wakes up, but there is no end to them, which makes her eyes hurt, and she gets tired of this nonsense. The bird suggests entrusting this to the servants, but Danae refuses, saying that this is her test, and she must pass it herself in order to pave the way to the future. Suddenly, Danae jumps up, scaring the bird, and joyfully shouts that she has found it. The letter spoke of ancestors who traded across the continent, and of a ship, the Celestial, which sank in a storm after a major deal. The ship was laden with enormous profits and family treasures, and its sinking ruined the family. Recovering these riches was considered impossible. After reading this, Lucas asks if she really chooses this particular offer, and if she has a special reason. Danae replies that the treasure ship is cool, and there are family heirlooms there that she feels sorry for, so she wants to help. Lucas is speechless. From his gaze, Danae understands that there's more to it than that, and she realizes she didn't choose out of pity. Lucas thinks she's too confident. Danae asks if he wants to know where she gets her confidence from. Danae remembers that the fairies told her about the ship 500 years ago, and believes that Master Rien's necklace brought good luck, because such coincidences do not happen. Lucas suggests further investigation, but Danae replies that she's already called the right person. A man named Diego enters the room. Danae tells him that she was impressed by his proposal and heard about his efforts to return the family values. Diego replies that she was the first to respond, wipes away his tears, and says that everyone else drove him away, considering him crazy. Danae turns to Lucas and remarks that people can be too cruel. Diego insists he's not lying, and the ship really does contain treasure. He found his ancestors, records, and knows the exact location of the wreck. He believes this will make it easy to find the skyship Cetilianel. Danae asks if there are any navigational records. Diego talks about the eastern waters of the continent and ancient gold coins, the total value of which reaches 100 billion. He offers to invest 1 billion gold in exchange for half the profits. Danae notices that he calls the ship differently each time and realizes that Lucas's suspicions are only growing. Danae thinks she's doubting herself to the limit and the man seems strange to her, but she decides to take a chance. She declares she wants to make the deal right now. Lucas is surprised, but Danae assures her she's completely serious. Diego joyfully shouts that he will finally be able to return the family values and calls Danae a benefactress. Danae replies that this is not a favor, but a mutually beneficial deal. She says the profits will be split 8-2, with 8 going to her. If there's no investment, his profit is 0. Diego objects, and Danae agrees to 3, declaring that's the maximum. He accepts the terms. Danae thinks that everything went well, since she initially expected 7, and asks Lucas to prepare the contract. Lucas asks, surprised, if she really agrees to this. Meanwhile, in the annex of the Winter Palace, Kana is talking to her father, who says that the Archduke's granddaughter has begun to act. Kana assures that there is nothing to worry about, but her father demands an explanation. She explains that she invited Baron Diego, a notorious beggar. The father laughs and says that he knew it all along, that the Archduke's granddaughter was just a stupid child, whom even Lucas couldn't stop. He believes Lucas is laying claim to the Archduke's position himself. Kana understands the risk, but it's all for the sake of her desired status. Kana always dreamed of marrying into the Asanoff family and wielding enormous power. She believes that this way she will be able to pay off her father's debts, since her marriage to Lucas was initially a pledge. The father lived on this money in luxury and gambling, but the appearance of the Archduke's granddaughter destroyed the agreement, and the Oset family found itself on the brink of collapse. Kana doesn't understand why the girl from the direct line gets everything at once without doing anything. She thinks that the goddess Rosiante will definitely understand her. A few days later, the bird is indignant at how it could have been put in a cage. Danae explains that he remains in the room, and Marina has taken care of him. Danae reminds him to watch his speech, because Hidden will be arriving soon. The bird says that she doesn't trust demons and asks why she doesn't trust him so much. Danae screams that she doesn't trust him, and at that moment, Lucas enters the room. Lucas reports that a letter has arrived from Baron Diego about the ship being found. Danae is surprised. Diego writes that he is happy to repay her and restore his family's trading business. Danae asks how much treasure was on the ship. He replies that it was much more than expected. Diego says the profit could be 200 billion, which is double the estimate. He reports that Danae will receive 140 billion, that is 70% of the profit. Danae realizes that by investing 1 billion, she will receive 140. Diego promises to dedicate himself to the trade and help it in the future. Danae smiles and thinks that help will not be needed, because the test has already been passed. She thinks that she will destroy the Asanoff family and make Pamela Asanoff shed bloody tears in the afterlife. Lucas confirms that the investment has been successfully returned, and although it will take time to cash out, the profit is clear. Danae asks if the elders will recognize her. Lucas assures her that with such an achievement, there can be no doubt. Lucas strokes her head and admits that he initially did not believe in success, because Baron Diego was famous for being a swindler, and he was already thinking about how to get his investment back. The young gentleman says he always made investment decisions based solely on numbers, documents, and probability. He believed there was nothing more accurate than dry calculations. But now he understands that this is not enough. Danae looks at him and thinks that this is indeed how it is. She made her decision based on information, and even if she died, she still couldn't say otherwise. Lucas admits she was right, if you look at it from a different perspective. Thanks to her, he realized a lot, and says she truly has the right to take the Archduke's place. Danae realizes that she has finally earned Lucas's trust. A few days later, Marina informs the lady that new letters have arrived again. Danae immediately guesses that the rumor of the 140 billion has spread far and wide. It seems that every potential entrepreneur has decided to try their luck. She realizes the goal has been achieved and no longer wants to invest. At the same time, she's unsure what to do next, as there's no point in deliberately increasing the workload, and the probationary period isn't over yet. Danae decides she has no choice but to play the dutiful heiress. She plans to merely skim the letters and put them aside. Suddenly, a guest, Kana, comes to her and asks if Lady Danae was doing well. Danae greets Lady Kana and asks if she just wandered in during her stroll. She replies that she's here on business and apologizes for visiting without an appointment. Kana says she heard Danae hasn't been getting any rest because of her work. She suggests they go to the auction house together and unwind a bit. Danae is surprised. Kana explains that it's a famous auction house with rare items, she has invitations, and she'd like to go with her. Danae understands that the offer to watch the auction is just a pretext, and the true goal is clearly different. She remembers Theon, who is easily upset but never lazy, and especially tries not to show weakness in front of Kana Oset. Danae says that the auction could really be interesting, and agrees to go. She realizes that Kana has an ulterior motive, but decides to play along and says that she is looking forward to it. On the day of the auction, Danae asks in surprise if they didn't just come to look. Kana feigns surprise and reminds him that Danae herself mentioned participating. She explains that the auction is about assessing rare items and their true value. The Marquis says that there are many rarities on display today, and if you like something, just hold up the number in your hand. Danae finally understands why she's been brought here. The auction could bring huge profits, but if the price is misjudged, it could easily turn into a loss. She thinks a 13-year-old child who recently lived as a commoner can't possibly have a keen eye, and she suspects the auction is a way to spend her money. Danae understands that Kana is hoping to guide her and force her to buy useless things. The guard jokingly says that if she buys any junk, she'll get it from that guy. He explains that he means a certain unpleasant guy. Danae tells him not to worry and promises to buy him some amazing things. Kana says she'll be there to help, as she's sure everyone will be amazed. The host announces the start of the auction and shows the first lot, a landscape painting by Belwa, an artist gaining popularity in the capital. Kana says this is the 20th lot and asks if Danae has any desire to buy anything. Danae thinks she'll pay for looking down on her. She believes that her endurance and patience are the result of her training with Master Caladrian. The Marquise praises Belwa and says that even the imperial family commissions paintings from him. Danae thinks she won't be impressed anyway. Kana warns that if she doesn't bid now, she'll regret it. Danae, however, believes that the value of paintings increases after the artist's death, and this one is actively working in the capital. The Marquise insists that Danae buy the painting and grabs her hand. Dean asks why Kana doesn't buy it herself. Danae agrees he's right. The guard notes that Lady Kana has a good understanding of art and reminds him that she herself told him to buy what he likes. Danae takes the Marquise's hand and raises the number. Hedden announces a bet of 500 million. The host asks for a higher bid, but there are no takers. He announces that the landscape has been sold to guest number 4 for 500 million. Kana gets angry, and after a while suggests looking at the next item, a pot. Danae, surprised, picks up the number again. The host announces the victory of guest number 4, first at 600, then at 800 million. Kana says that since this is Danae's first time at an auction, she should at least buy this piece. Danae agrees and raises the number again. Danae thanks Theon. He doesn't understand why and asks what she did. Danae thinks that he was speaking without any sense, and at such moments one should be wary of fools. At the end of the auction, a new lot is announced, a tapestry with an inscription in an ancient language. The starting price is 1 million gold pieces. Danae is surprised because the other lots started at 5,000, but it looks like a child scratched the inscription. The young gentleman notices that even the presenter looks unsure and suggests that it might be a fake. Danae believes it's genuine. She trusts in Master Rian's knowledge and understands that the language belongs to the ancient magical kingdom of Riam. She guesses these are coordinates and thinks Lucas can figure it out. Taking a chance, she picks up number 2. The host announces that the tapestry with the ancient inscription goes to guest number 2. Danae says with a smile that betting on something you like is quite fun. Back at the mansion, Theon says she's too cheerful for someone who returned with such junk. Danae indignantly declares that this is not junk, but a tapestry with an ancient inscription, and asks if this is not a masterpiece. Theon laughs and says that even stupidity has its limits. Danae replies that it truly is a masterpiece. The young master sarcastically says that her head is a real masterpiece, since she bought it for 5,000 gold pieces. Danae insists it's a great work in an ancient language. Theon thinks it's just a sales ploy. Lucas intervenes and says it's true. He thinks he can decipher the inscription. Lucas explains that he has studied ancient languages before and assumes that this is the language of the Kingdom of Riam. Danae realizes that he is right and asks what is written there. Lucas says these are coordinates and text about relics left in the last minutes of life for posterity. He explains it's a treasure map. If Riam's relics are really there, they've hit the jackpot again. Lucas strokes her head and tells her that her diamond eyes don't lie. Danae replies that she bought the tapestry simply because it is beautiful and thinks that good luck is on her side. Theon is surprised and asks if she really knew everything in advance. Danae doesn't understand what he's talking about, and he waves her off. Theon suggests that Lucas quickly decipher the coordinates and report them to the magic tower, because people will be needed. Danae thinks everything is going perfectly. She feels as if the master's necklace and the goddess Rosianta are protecting her. A few days later, Danae thinks Lucas deserves to be called a genius. He figured out the coordinates in a day and prepared all the documents. Lucas reports that permission has been granted, the magic tower has assembled a team, and Shise will personally lead the excavations in Nastan. Danae thinks that if Lucas one day says he is an alien, she won't be surprised. Lucas reminds her that the trial is almost over. If the excavation is successful, her position as successor will be even stronger. He touches her hair and says his words were sincere. Shise, Theon, and all of them will be her support. Danae believes she has no right to relax. Even Lucas is connected to Pamela, and she can't forget her goal, the destruction of the Asanov family. On the day of the expedition's departure, Danae goes out to see Shizov, but does not find him and is surprised. When she finally sees him, she is surprised by the clothes he is wearing when going to the excavation. Theon jokes that his brother hasn't changed and looks like he's going looking for a bride. Shise replies that he heard everything and distorts his name. Theon claims that he is a Baratheon and that no one has ever mangled his older brother's name like that. Shise replies that he was born only a couple of minutes earlier and asks why he suddenly became the eldest. Theon says that he knows him through and through, and that he will not change with age. Danaya thinks their arguments have started again. Lucas asks them to stop, even on the day of their departure. Lucas reminds Shisei to be careful about demons. He replies that the likelihood of their appearance is low. Shisei says demons are usually found in the north, but they're heading toward the center of the continent. Lucas still urges caution. Danaya asks Shisei not to overdo it, and not to waste too much energy on the search. He considers this a strange piece of advice. She explains that without him, there will be no one to teach her to dance, and asks him to come back quickly. Shisei looks at her strangely. He asks how many fingers she has. Danaya replies 10. Shisei suggests counting them one by one and asks if she understands. After he leaves, Danaya asks Lucas what the fingers have to do with it. He explains that Shisei meant 10 days. Theon says it's always hard to understand Shisei's meaning. Lucas thinks it's his way of showing affection. Danae says she understands now and wishes him a speedy return. She then asks why the kingdom of Riam was destroyed. She thinks this is an unusual interest for Shiz and believes that Riam could become a great power. Her brother is surprised and asks if she doesn't even know such a story. Danaya reflects on the fact that she never went to school. She believes that it is normal not to know, because her life has always been a struggle for survival. Lucas apologizes and says that he forgot to tell her about a lot of things. He explains that after the tests, she needs to go to the capital and understand the history of the imperial family. Lucas says that Riam had close ties to the empire and promises to find her a good teacher. He says he'll introduce her to this teacher. Danae is surprised and wonders what kind of person he is. A man with bright red hair enters the room and introduces himself as Jedin Latessa. Danae thinks it's Hedin's brother, and the guard is his younger brother, who is prone to panic. The teacher asks how knowledgeable she is, since she often works in the magic tower. Jedin explains that his department studies the history, technology, and application of magic. He says that he is very busy, so he will only explain the most important things. Danae thinks he is completely different from his younger brother. The teacher suggests starting with the relationship between Riam and the Empire and explaining why the kingdom disappeared after the meteorite fell. He says much is still shrouded in mystery, and if the tapestry leads to artifacts, it will shock the world. Danae thinks that all that remains is to wait, because the real artifacts will definitely be found. Jedin begins to talk about the Kiron Empire and its ancestor, who united the continent with the power of the dragon. Kiron's ancestor did indeed receive the power of a dragon. Danaya thinks this is all new to her, since even Master Rian never told her about it. The dragon's power was called Caladrian. The girl was genuinely surprised to hear this. The teacher mentioned that it was connected to the ancient magical kingdom of Riam, adding that very few records remained of it. Danaya asked for just a second. Jedin immediately asked if the student had any misunderstandings. The main character clarified whether Caladrian refers specifically to the power of the dragon and whether it is a person's name. The teacher replied that anyone with such a name would have been imprisoned long ago. The imperial family tried every possible means to conceal the existence of the dragon's power, Caladrian. This force was so powerful that calling a person by such a name would be considered a sin. At that moment, the girl caught herself thinking that words seemed to be fading from her ears. Jedin continued his story and said that among the rare records of the kingdom of Riam, the word Caladrian appears. According to these sources, it means, quote, primordial dragon. Therefore, some chronicles say that the ancestor of the imperial family did not receive the power of the dragon, but rather met it. Hearing this, Danae thought the master might be a dragon, as if he were trying to make her believe it. It seemed impossible to her that a dragon could simply fall ill and die. The thought of Master Caladrian took a sharp turn, and the girl no longer understood who he really was. A few days later, she remembered that only 3 days remained until Shisei's promised 10 days. Usually there was no news from him, and the elder's trial ended in 3 days. Danaya felt her head about to explode with anxiety, as there was still no news from this guy. She couldn't tell if she was the only one worried about this. At this point, the bird turned to its king and said it was bored. He remarked that it was enough for it to sit still, and then suggested seizing the opportunity to plunge all the people of the world into eternal sleep. The young lady replied that she wasn't bored at all. She considered herself different from demons and had no interest in destroying or taking over the world. The girl explained that she was only engaged in destroying the Asanov family. Danae grabbed the bird and, with a cry, ordered it to fly immediately. The bird, confused, asked where exactly. She replied, "Dynastin," and told them to check on Shees. The bird, surprised, asked its king what business it had with the object of its vengeance. Danae sharply ordered it to stop talking nonsense and fly as quickly as possible. The protagonist thought that if the artifacts were found, she might learn new truths about the master. She decided that she had to succeed in excavating the ruins at any cost. On the evening of the last day of the Elders' test, Marina informed the lady that young Master Shees had returned. Hearing this, the girl immediately ran to him and started asking if he had been hurt, and if he was hurt. He told his brother that he would rest and everything would be fine, asking him not to worry, as he was no longer a little child. Danaya asked if Shisei had returned alive and couldn't understand why he looked so exhausted. She immediately asked what had happened to him. The boy asked her to stop shaking him because he was about to throw up. The girl asked if he was being attacked by demons, and if that was why he felt so ill. He told the little girl that he used teleportation magic because he was in a hurry to get to her, and immediately after that he threw up. Hearing this, the main character thought it was incredible, because teleportation is one of the most difficult types of magic. Baratheon noted that, as expected, the Sage of the Sorcerer's Tower was far from simple. He then asked how many times this magic had been used, and how long it had taken to get here. Shisei replied that it was obvious how exhausted the man who used such magic was. Then he turned to the girl and said that, in any case, she hadn't been expecting him. But this very thing. The boy tossed the girl a gold coin. She immediately asked what it was. Shisei explained that it was a legacy of the Riem Kingdom, and that it was no longer possible to make something like it in their time. He suggested taking a closer look at the coin, as it was engraved with an ancient magical formula. The young master said that after the trial was over, they would know everything for sure if they conducted research in the magic tower. He said it was an obvious historical discovery. The guy grabbed the girl by the head, hugged her, and, with a cry, said that the little girl was simply amazing. This time, she had clearly stumbled upon a treasure ship and proven her talent for making money. He added that she seemed to have an excellent nose for money and joked that she had a dog's nose. Danae angrily asked who he just called a dog. Shisei remarked that even his brother sometimes makes mistakes. He then explained that the coordinates on the map didn't match the actual location, which is why the search took longer. Lucas apologized and said he had not taken into account a phenomenon known as seismic slip. The main character looked at the guy and thought he'd been working so hard he hadn't even slept. She asked how they'd managed to determine the altered location. Shisa replied that a bird had suddenly appeared and told them everything. The girl was surprised to hear this, and the boy looked at the bird next to her and said it looked very much like the one. Danae couldn't understand how this bastard had even managed to fly in. The guy asked if it was the bird she was raising, and if she'd given him the coordinates, adding that it might be a lucky bird. Danae reflected on the fact that he'd flown to monitor their movements, but for some reason had given up the coordinates. She realized she was now in his debt, and considered it a fatal mistake. The main character decided that, as expected, she shouldn't let her guard down around this demon. Around the same time, in the Winter Mansion's annex, the father, crying out, asked his daughter how such a thing could have happened. He insisted she should have made sure the girl spent all the money, not earned it. The man asked if she understood what was happening, and stated that if she did not become an archduchess, their family would end. Kana replied that she knew this perfectly well, and therefore wanted to return everything to its place. She believed that everything was perfect before the birth of that child. The father said he was disappointed with everything, starting with the failed attack on the carriage. He then told his daughter to sort this matter out completely next time. On the day the results of the Elders' examination were announced, Marina informed the lady that the day had finally come. Danae thought that the moment had come, and that soon she would become the successor and would be able to actively begin to carry out her revenge. The guard announced that the Elders were waiting in another room. Marina said that after the meeting was over, they would escort the lady. Danaya opened the door and thought, "Great, it's time to go out." Suddenly, she spotted a bird and asked why it was there. The bird replied that it couldn't be absent from such a place of honor, as it was only natural for a loyal subordinate to be absent. The girl told her to leave, but the bird refused. Marina asked what was going on, and the lady suggested they ignore her and pretended everything was fine. When the main character opened the room, something strange happened. The bird said it seemed they had entered a zero-gravity chamber. Danae screamed, not understanding what the hell was happening. The moment she opened the door, a strange magic activated, and she began to fall. begging Blanche to do something. She said it was an order and told me to use any method right now. Having fallen, the young lady looked around and didn't understand where they were. Suddenly, she saw Blanche, who had grown from a small man into a big man. He said it couldn't be, since she was a queen of a woman, and admitted that he had lost again. The girl objected that he was small, not she was big, and added that everyone, on the contrary, was worried about her thinness. Meanwhile, in the winter mansion, the master cried out and asked why the search for one child was taking so long. He couldn't understand how the sage of the magic tower couldn't handle such a task. Baratheon ordered him to be silent and explained that several mages were using advanced magic to hinder the search. The boy said that if he wasn't a god, it was impossible to instantly destroy such magic. The twins screamed at him to become a god quickly, to which the boy asked if he was going to continue talking nonsense. Shisei asked the Archduke where he was headed. He replied that he was going to question the culprit. The guy said in surprise that he knew who was to blame and would go ask questions himself, scratching his head and not understanding how it all happened. At that moment, the girl, sitting in the dungeon, heard a voice. Peering over the wall, she saw a man tied up and lying on the floor. Untying him, Danae saw a girl of a different race. She screamed when she noticed the blood and decided she needed to stop the bleeding immediately. The stranger asked what Danae was doing and expressed surprise at how she could tear such a beautiful dress. The protagonist told her to ignore it and added that she had many more like it in the mansion. The little girl replied that she would no longer be able to return because they would soon be sold. Danae said that this was illegal in the Empire and asked who would dare to do such a thing. Suddenly the door opened and men walked in. One of them looked at the girl and said she was now their product, and a special one at that. The stranger noted that her value was immediately apparent. Her clothes were expensive, and judging by her appearance, they might send a pursuit after her. The master reassured him, saying that there were dozens of magicians stationed outside, and no pursuit would achieve anything. The bird looked at them and thought that just 5 people was boring. The girl asked him what he was planning to do and told him to sit quietly unless she told him to. The man grabbed the girl and asked who this paper-thin woman was. She replied that she'd mentioned her thinness herself and was surprised by the reference to her royal weight. The stranger asked who she was talking to. The servant cried out, indicating that the girl had untied the ropes. The girl, of a different race, tried to fight back, but the man was stronger and struck her. Danae looked at it, and memories of the past came flooding back. Moments surfaced when she'd been in unbearable pain and rage had boiled inside her. The gentleman ordered both girls to be stuffed into a box and said that a ship would arrive in an hour, where they would be loaded immediately. Danae pointed and asked what was there. Then she told Blanche to fly at full speed. The man thought she was fooling around, tried to catch the bird, and hit his friend. The bald man grabbed him and asked him what he was doing. He replied that he didn't understand, as something had scurried past him like a rat. The gentleman impatiently asked if they could load the girls faster. Danae told the bird it was an attack. With her help, a fight broke out between the men, and the master didn't understand what was going on. At this time, in the Winter Mansion, a man asked if it was true that Lady Danae had been kidnapped, and what the Archduke was going to do now. The Archduke declared that he would give them 10 minutes. If the culprit did not confess, he would begin cutting off one hand from each person present. The board of directors was outraged and asked if he suspected them. The Archduke replied that in 10 minutes he would cut off the arm, and in another 10, the leg. The men said that even the head of Asenov has no right to act in this way without a trial, calling it arbitrary. The Archduke said there were 9 minutes left, and he wouldn't repeat it. For the last time, he would cut off the head. Suddenly, one of the men stood up and declared that the gentleman should not say such absurd things, after which he decided to leave. The Archduke replied that the Knights of the Mist were guarding the area, and no one would move without his permission. He added that there were 8 minutes remaining. A quarrel broke out between the gentlemen, each blaming the other and trying to shift responsibility. The others insisted they were innocent and begged for mercy. The Archduke grabbed his sword and declared that time was up. At that moment, the door opened and the girl asked him to wait and listen to her. He asked what was going on. Kaina claimed that her father was the one responsible for the kidnapping, that he had orchestrated the whole thing, and promised to tell him where Danae was. Hearing this, the father cried out and asked his daughter what she was saying. The Archduke offered to tell everything in more detail. At this time, in the dungeon, a man tried to put the main character in a box. The gentleman said irritably that this was disobedience, since they couldn't even cope with this. The man asked if everything would be okay, since the girl looked like a noblewoman and had an unusual eye color. He was told that eye color didn't matter, and that the less you know, the better you sleep. The stranger noticed that the client had probably paid the middleman a good sum and offered to sell the girl as quickly as possible. Suddenly, the men heard a strange sound, and one thought it was an earthquake. The master ordered a servant to check what was happening. As soon as the door opened, the servant received a punch in the face. Danae saw Theon, who screamed, demanding that she immediately take her hands off the baby. One of the men asked if this was the sword's power, and if he was a master. Another shouted, wondering what the mages were doing outside. Theon said that he was already in a bad mood because of the kidnapping of his sister, and it would be better for them to obediently carry out his words. The robber pulled out a knife and grabbed Danae, asking if they cared what happened to her. The gentleman said he wanted to see if he dared do anything to the Asanoff family's heir. At that moment, the Archduke appeared and asked the girl if she was frightened or hurt. The young lady replied that she was fine. Her grandfather, crying out, said she couldn't even imagine how worried he had been about her. Theon picked up the blue feather and asked what had happened to the dress. The girl explained that she had torn it to stop the bleeding. Hearing this, the boy screamed, demanding a doctor immediately, believing the baby's life was in danger. She explained that it wasn't she who was hurt, but someone else. Danae told her grandfather that she didn't want to see anyone put into eternal sleep, and asked Shize not to use her spells. The protagonist understood that life was full of unexpected turns. Nevertheless, the first thing she did after taking her place as successor to the Archduchy was… The young lady was completely immersed in her work and exclaimed that she didn't understand anything. She had earned so much money, but she was still being assigned these petty tasks. Danae asked Lucas why, saying she wanted more important assignments. He calmly explained that even as the successor, she was still a 13-year-old girl. The young man added that it was difficult to trust her with the management of the estate yet, and suggested they learn everything gradually. The girl immediately objected, declaring that he knew what she was capable of. Lucas said the Archduke was more demanding of his work than anyone else. Then he admitted he hadn't intended to say it out loud, but she had passed the tests almost perfectly, completing the entire process flawlessly. At that moment, Danae realized she had passed the trials not through her abilities, but through luck. Neither the Archduke nor Lucas suspected that she was relying on her knowledge and experience from her past life. She found this annoying, because she couldn't tell the truth. She merely said her name, and Theon patted her head, noticing that she was putting her brother in an awkward position. The girl asked why he hadn't knocked. He replied that she probably hadn't heard him because she was crying, then added that he'd brought just the right job for a future archduchess with no experience or manners. Danae read the letter and said it was an invitation to an imperial party. Theon explained that, as the official heir, she was expected to appear in high society and demonstrate her dancing skills. The main character confidently said that she would definitely go. Kana approached His Excellency and declared that she had renounced her family to protect the young lady. She admitted she didn't know if they would believe her, as the entire sideline wanted Lucas to succeed her. The Marchioness said she held a different opinion. For her, Danae was the true successor, and to prove her loyalty, she had to act in this way. The Archduke asked her why she wanted reciprocity and what she wanted in return. Kana replied that she did. Meanwhile, Theon took Danae to the hairdresser. When they finished her hair, he noticed that it was too curled and suggested she let it down a bit. Danae thought her back must be stiff from sitting for 2 hours already. It reminded her of the dreadful day when she first bought her dresses. Kana, who had been her savior during the kidnapping and betrayed her father, was left without a place to live. As a reward, she, as before, asked permission to live in the annex of the Winter Mansion, but the Archduke was worried about her and insisted that she live not there, but in another Asanoff mansion on the outskirts of the capital. Mr. Asanoff understood that Kana was hoping for something by saving her granddaughter. He found a suitable place for her and decided to settle everything quietly. The Asanoff family was heading to the capital for the first time in 7 years, and they needed to drop off Kana on the way. Danae thought all she could do was be polite. Therefore, once in the capital, Danae was forced to spend time with Kana. Theon asked why his brother was sighing. She's replied that he was worried about Lucas, who remained in the Winter Mansion, but added that such was the will of the great mage Pamela. He said he knew how important it was to protect the Winter Mansion and not to disturb the family's mission and traditions, which go back 500 years. The guy reminded that Prince Kirun personally sent an invitation to the Archduke, and even signed an agreement, so it was impossible to refuse. Theon added that he had to be present because he needed to see the results of her dance training. The young man said he had arrived as an assistant and bodyguard at the old man's request. Lucas added that the Archduke was dissatisfied with some of the knights. Danae cried out that her grandfather had gone too far, because he had immediately removed Hedon from her guard. The guard said that, unfortunately, something similar had happened before, when he first brought her to the mansion, and the old man wouldn't forgive it twice. Then he asked if she was happy to have a new knight. The next day, Danae showed the letter and said the princess had invited her to tea. The twins were surprised, and she didn't understand their reaction. Theon suggested throwing the letter away immediately, and Shisei burning it. The girl asked, surprised, why? Shisei asked if she wanted to step on the same rake as Lucas. Danae didn't understand and asked what he meant. Theon explained that the princess had fallen in love with Lucas at a party and had been stalking him for years. Shisei added that even after the refusal, she tried to find a way to harm Lucas, and he did not understand why such people were drawn to his brother. Danae thought it was really hard to be popular. However, she noticed that the letter came personally from the princess. She said that she would gladly accept the invitation for the sake of good relations with the imperial family, and asked whether this would not enhance the successor's reputation. Theon noticed her high ambitions and asked if she intended to make her mark on the capital on her first visit. She replied that she simply wanted to go to tea. Danae secretly thought he'd grasped her intentions with alarming accuracy. She added that she wanted her grandfather to pay attention to her again, even if it was just for a small errand. The girl said that such tasks were unworthy of a successor, and admitted that she wanted to be recognized as a grandfather and do real work. Danae thought that if things went wrong, her plan for revenge would crumble like sea foam. Shisei grabbed his brother by the clothes and said that these were Lucas' words, so he should listen carefully. Before leaving, Lucas said that Danae was feeling frustrated with small errands, and that this could be due to past mistreatment, which is causing her to have low self-esteem. He added that he sees how she is trying her best to prove herself, and the current Danae is already good enough, so she should be allowed to do whatever she wants in the capital. The elder brother said that he would talk to the Archduke and do a favor for Shisei. Danae looked at the twins and asked what was wrong with them. Theon noted that Ella was stubborn, but her fighting prowess was limited, and Shisei agreed, saying that if Lucas had held out, Danae would be fine. Hearing this, Danae joyfully exclaimed that since everything was decided, she would gladly go. She asked Marina to send a reply immediately, and the twins said they would go with her. On the day of the tea party, Danae realized the scale was larger than she had expected. The atmosphere was strictly feminine, so the twins were asked to wait in another room. The pink-haired princess asked if she was Danae. The girl realized it was Ella and decided to show Shisei the results of her training. Danae introduced herself as the successor to the Archduchy of Asanoff and expressed her gratitude for the honor. The princess replied that she was honored to hear gratitude from the Asanoff family, known for rarely responding to invitations, and asked if she was lucky today. Emma invited them to sit down. Danae smiled, sensing that the tea party would be fun, and realized that this was her first test as successor. She thought it would be interesting to see who would come out the winner. Princess Ella was confused, as reality didn't match the rumors. She'd been told the Archduke's granddaughter was a simpleton from the slums. But Danae held her own and said it was the best chocolate chip cookie she'd ever had. Ella couldn't understand why Danae was so beautiful and elegant. Even her taste in clothes was impeccable, and she couldn't fathom where she could have bought such things. Emma remembered Lucas Asanoff, who dared to leave her with a smile, and decided to show the world his sister's true face. Danae asked if she had anything stuck to her face. The princess replied no, adding that the sweets and tea were the best in the empire. Ella said that the taste might be unusual for northerners, thinking that Danae was a modest girl who had not known luxury. Danae said she couldn't stand it. The princess assumed she was indignant and could barely contain her irritation, but the guest added that she could not contain her gratitude, thanking her for such precious tea and the kindness of the hostess. The princess asked in surprise if she was really beautiful and kind, and said that it was just tea, of which there was plenty in the palace. Danae replied that the princess had specially prepared it for tea and called her a real angel. Emma said that it was natural, because the more a person has, the more he should share, and that the prosperity of the Karun family was based on this. Danae countered, noting that sharing was always difficult, and added that it was only possible thanks to the princess's generosity. She compared Ella to the goddess who gave power to Pamela of the Asanoff family. The princess thought that she was Lucas's younger sister and offered to take the tea leaves with her. Danae said that it was a great honor for her, and the other ladies were shocked by such a gift. Meanwhile, the twins were waiting in the room. Shees asked about the cakes on the table, and his brother replied that a servant had left them. Theon was indignant. Why did they even bring sweets to where two guys were sitting? The brother noticed that his taste had not changed and asked if he was trying to please Danae. Shees replied that his brother was no better and reminded him that if anything happened to the successor, the Archduke would be furious. He added that after the recent kidnapping, extra security wouldn't hurt. Theon looked out the window and noticed a young man standing near the guards. Shise said it was the second Prince of Roaz and was surprised by the bow in his hands. He added that with such a physique, he would hardly be able to keep his balance and could get into trouble. At Asinov's mansion in the capital, Marina asked about the boxes. Danae replied that they were tea leaves from Princess Ella. She added that it was a phalanium with a wonderful aroma. The maid was surprised to hear about the famous elite leaves. Marina inquired about what had happened in the palace. Theon said that Danae had clearly charmed the princess, since she had received so many gifts. Danae didn't understand what he was talking about, noticing that, apart from her beauty, Ella was an ordinary girl without fighting power. The guy replied that if you look closely, she also knows how to say harsh things with a smile. Danae remembered that the day after tomorrow she would go to the palace, because the princess had invited her on a boat ride and told her to come alone. On the day of the meeting, Danae thought that for the first time in her life, she would ride on a boat and eat delicious sweets again. As promised, a luxurious carriage arrived to pick her up, accompanied by an escort that turned out to be larger than she expected. Danae remembered the conversation about her brothers being overprotective and decided that they really were overly concerned. She apologized to the princess and said that she was glad that they were allowed to stay at the palace. Ella asked in surprise if she really thought she would be kicked out, and noted that she was not that stingy. Danae said she was jealous because she had no brothers. The princess replied that she had 3, which meant she had saved the country in her past life. Danae mentioned Prince Roaz, nicknamed the Noble Lily. Ella said tomorrow's boat ride was more important. Emma added that it was rare to make friends like that in the north, and there wouldn't be a better chance. Danae wondered what they thought of the north. The princess said that she would send a carriage and guards, and this time, Danae could come alone. Today, as promised, the carriage with the knights arrived. Marina said it was probably nice to have friends her own age, even if she didn't understand everything. Danae felt her head spin with new encounters. She remembered that she had never left the Misty Mountains, so everything was new and a little unsettling, but she decided that everything would go well. She's asked her to stop. Danae said he hadn't been asked to accompany her, and joked so he wouldn't worry. Her brother placed the ring on her finger. He said it matched her dress, hugged her, and whispered that he had cast a protective spell. He strictly asked her to never take off this ring and made sure she understood. Danae thought that this was the same 3rd son of Asinov, who did not even bleed from his wounds. The accompanying persons saw only a touching scene of a brother caring for his sister. The guard said he would contact him upon arrival and assured him that the girl was safe. In the carriage, Danae felt her head spinning from all this reality. The maid reported that the mistress had just woken up, and the butler added that the princess could hardly sleep while waiting for the meeting. Danae was surprised to realize that the princess had actually been waiting for her. The butler suggested waiting for the princess to finish her business or joining the other ladies. Danae asked if she could go for a walk alone, since she hadn't seen the beautiful garden last time. The maid, standing abruptly, asks why she said she was alone. The young lady replies that these are the lands of the Kirin imperial family, adding that there is simply no safer place in the empire. The grandfather acknowledges the situation may be alarming, but assures them there is no cause for concern. The butler only asks them not to stray too far. The young lady thanks them for their concern. Danae notices how different the palace is from anything she's seen before. The garden seems endless, and there's a lake nearby. She remembers that in her past life, she'd never seen such clear weather. In the Misty Mountains where she lived, fog was a constant companion. Mr. Ryan said he only liked the taste of the air there. At that moment, she realized she had learned almost nothing about the master since the excavations. Suddenly, she feels her heart begin to pound wildly. Danae remembers her brother and his overprotectiveness, even the protective ring with magic. She feels like someone is nearby. The next moment, an arrow flies out of nowhere, and she barely manages to dodge it. The boy asks who she is. Danae doesn't understand where this angelic-looking child, aiming a gun at her, came from. Suddenly, he stumbles, falls into the swamp, and collapses. Danae cries out and asks if he's okay, though inside she feels alarm and danger. She offers him her hand, but he refuses. Danae thinks that's what men usually do and decides she might have hurt his pride. She apologizes and introduces herself, saying that she is from the Asanoff family and her name is Danae. The boy notes that the Asanoff are descendants of the hero Pamela. He heard that the violet eyes confirm this and assumes she is the one Ella spoke of. The prince apologizes for the late introduction and says that he is Roaz, the second prince of the Kirin Empire. The young lady, surprised, calls him Noble Lily. The prince asks how she knows this nickname. Danae notes his innocent reaction and understands why the other ladies were making such a fuss around him. Danae asks why he shot in her direction. His Highness apologizes and immediately asks if he injured her. She replies that she is fine, thinking that without the skills of her past life, she could have long ago fallen into eternal sleep. Roaz explains that he's preparing for a hunting festival. He admits that he's inferior to his brother in strength and often makes mistakes, after which he apologizes and remarks that perhaps his arrow hit the ornament on her hat. The prince reaches for his hat, but is repelled by an invisible force, and he falls. Danae realizes her brother's protective ring has been activated. Roaz falls into the water, and Danae immediately rushes to his rescue. He passes out from shock, and she rushes to pull him out. She doesn't understand what kind of lake this is. Her legs are pulled downward, and the current seems strange. Danae realizes they could drown together, but with the help of the master's necklace, she climbs out. She can't understand what happened. At some point, the necklace started glowing, although she hadn't even known what color it was before. Holding the necklace in her hand, Danae wonders if the gray piece has regained its former blue hue. The prince starts coughing. Danae asks if he's come too, and he asks what that splash of water was. The guards report that they can already see the prince, and servants run toward them. Danae realizes things are bad as people quickly gather around. The butler orders a doctor to be called immediately and 2 blankets to be brought. The princess asks if Lady Danae was here and how it all happened. Danae thinks it looks like she's put the prince in danger. She understands the imperial family won't ignore it. She is overcome with fear because she doesn't know what to do in such a situation. The maid reports that the knight's commander and the attending physician have arrived. Danae realizes that the prince suffered because of her and is at a loss as to how to justify it. She wonders if excuses will help at all if it was Shisa's ring that threw the prince away. The doctor asks the prince what happened and then turns to Lady Danae, trying to understand the situation. Danae decides that she must be honest and tell about the ring. But the prince suddenly apologizes and takes the blame, saying that everything happened due to his mistake. The maid says that she will prepare a room for Lady Danae, where she can change clothes and have a snack. The prince says he was saved by Lady Danae after falling into the lake. He explains that she remained silent out of respect for him and calls her his benefactress. The doctor notes that the prince is unusually eloquent today and is glad he's okay. He orders the rooms to be prepared immediately and for him to change clothes. Rose asks Lady Danae to forget about the arrow incident. She thinks she started all the fuss, but thanks to her, he was saved. Danae realizes that after falling into the lake, the master's necklace glowed and an unknown force pushed them out. The jewelry regained its lost color, but she doesn't know why. That night at Asanoff's mansion, Shisei sharply asks her if she has gone crazy and if she really thinks it is normal to fall into the lake with Prince Roaz. He cries out, asking if that guy had hurt her. Danae replies that her brother is either angry or worried, and he should choose one, reminding him that the consequences of his actions are more important. Shisei doesn't understand what he has to do with it. Danae explains that it's all because of the ring and its protective magic, bluntly saying it's his fault. He asks if the protection was activated and if that guy really did hurt her. Danae assures him that nothing of the sort happened. The Archduke enters the room and inquires about the noise. Theon denies it, pointing to his brother and accusing him. Shisei denies the accusations. Danae explains that everything happened because of overprotection and that without the ring, it wouldn't have happened. Shisei says that he gave Danae the protective ring because he was worried about her, as she was going to the palace alone. Theon asks if this is beyond expectations and admits his brother overdid it. In response, Shisei hits him, reminding him that he nearly fell into eternal sleep. Shisei tells him to remember that it was thanks to him that Danae returned safe and sound. Danae clarifies that Prince Roaz was hurt. Grandfather asks what he did to her, but she assures him nothing serious happened. She explains that the prince only wanted to fix the jewelry, but Shisa's ring threw him off, and Roaz hid the truth to protect her. The Archduke says he now understands the reason for the urgent letter. He mentions the long letter of apology and admits that everything is now clear. Grandfather adds that the letter contained words of gratitude to Danae for helping the prince. Shise asks if that's all he came for. The Archduke replies that there's something else and shows him a gift box. Danae asks what's inside, and her grandfather offers to open it. She sees a luxurious dress. The Archduke says there's little time left before the imperial family's party, and he's glad the dress has been completed, offering to wear it for the occasion. Danae thanks her grandfather, calling the gift the best, and asks Marina to help her try it on. The Archduke admits that this was a bit extreme, but considers the idea a good one and advises more prudence. Shise thinks that he hasn't received praise from the Archduke for a long time. A few days later, Marina reports that a box was delivered from the imperial palace and asked to be delivered, but she does not know what is inside. Opening the box, Danae sees a beautiful dress and shoes, and in the card there is an apology for last time and a gift from Prince Roaz. Danae thinks he must have been very worried, since he sent the dress. She believes there was no need to worry, since it all happened because of Shisa's ring. Marina says the dress is very beautiful and perfect for a party. Danae agrees, but reminds her that it's better to wear her grandfather's gift for the occasion. The maid thinks this is right, and suggests hanging the dress in the room. Shise abruptly tells him to throw the dress away. Danae doesn't understand how anyone could throw away a gift, and notes the strangeness of his reaction. He asks what will happen if the emperor decides to bind her to Roaz, and if she can handle it, explaining that this is exactly what he feared. Danae asks if he's exaggerating when he claims that Roaz is just a friend and the dress is an apology. Shise is certain the prince has other intentions. He points to the timing of the gift's delivery before the party as proof. Danae understands why Marina was so surprised and asks if it's too far-fetched. Shise is surprised by her ignorance and says the teacher should have told her. She asks what exactly. He explains that Roaz has a different mother of low status, which is why he was immediately excluded from the contenders for the throne. Danae says she's hearing about this for the first time. Her brother points out that it's no secret among the nobility, and that Roaz's options are either a modest life or marriage into an influential family. Danae recalls how, when Rose was mentioned, the princess immediately asked everyone to be silent. She thinks that Ella's strange reaction at the tea party is connected with this. Shise warns that if she continues to associate with Roaz, she could become part of the imperial family's plan. Danae is amazed by the mystery of his birth and the fact that he does not look like a princess at all. She reflects on the Asanoff family, realizing that not everyone here is related by blood, but everyone is considered equal nobles. She recalls Marina's words that before her arrival the mansion was gloomy, like eternal winter. Theon suddenly bursts into the room. Danae admonishes him, and he tells her about the mountains of chocolate cookies he received as a gift from a city pastry chef. Danae thinks that with just Baratheon, things are already noisy, and does not understand why the mansion was considered gloomy. Theon asks what's wrong with her. Danae says he looks very attractive, which surprises him. She notes that he is tall, fit, and handsome, even his hair is great. Danae jokes that she might be jealous of his blonde hair, remembering how irritating the handsome blonde was when they first met. Theon picks her up and suggests they stop chatting and go eat some cookies. Danae screams, worried she might spill her tea. On the day of the party, Kana suggests they ride together in a carriage. Danae thinks it's presumptuous and remembers they're staying in the same place. She asks if Kana received an invitation, and she replies that Asanoff's relatives also received them. Shise asks why her sister isn't getting into the carriage and where Theon is. Danae replies that he rode off on horseback after their grandfather's carriage. She notes that this was to be expected and urges them to leave. Kana asks permission to go with them. Danae thinks that if Shise allows it, her opinion will not carry weight, and suspects Kana of being cunning. Shise tells Danae that it is up to her, as the future head of the family, to decide whether or not to bring distant relatives. Danae politely informs Kana that it would be better for her to travel in another carriage, reminding her of the one she arrived in. Kana is surprised, thanks her for her concern, and Danae wishes her the same calm journey. Already in the carriage, Danae wonders if she was too harsh. She remembers that the Oset family was targeting her life, and she fears the consequences. Shise asks where she learned that. Danae replies that she simply imitated him. He says she coped with the difficulty, adding that for the effect it was worth simply leaving. However, Shisi admits that she performed well given her character. Finally, Danae arrives at the famous gathering place of the nobles, which everyone was waiting for. She exclaims in amazement upon seeing the enormous chocolate cake and immediately wants to try it. Her brother jokes that she plans to eat all the chocolate in the capital. Danae replies that since they are here, they should enjoy the moment. Suddenly, she notices that her grandfather has disappeared somewhere. She sees a crowd of young ladies around the Archduke and thinks about how popular he is, worrying if everything is all right with him. Theon reminds him that this is the first time the Archduke has appeared in 7 years. Shisei adds that his aura makes it clear he's not into the high life. Danae notices that the young Asanovs are not deprived of attention either. A queue is forming around them. The twins feel like they are surrounded by a swarm of bees. And Anaya realizes that Shis and Baratheon's popularity has exceeded her expectations. At that moment, the twins felt as if a veritable swarm of bees had gathered around them. Danae, however, thought that she'd known about Shis's popularity, but hadn't expected the same attention for Baratheon. She looked at the twins and noted their striking resemblance. Since they were talking about the tournament, that meant Theon had already achieved some kind of fame in some competition. Danae began to feel ill. Crowded places made her nauseous. The warm air mingled with the pungent scent of perfume, and she felt like she was about to vomit. Theon apologized to the ladies and asked them to disperse, explaining that his sister needed rest. Shis immediately asked what was wrong and where exactly she was feeling unwell. The Marchioness said there was a free terrace on the other side. Theon thanked her, and Danae noted with surprise that she hadn't known he was so polite. He responded by asking who she thought he was. After that, the aristocrats began whispering, claiming she had been found in the slums. They assumed the twins had been taken out of pity, and that the Archduke simply had a strange hobby, collecting unfortunates. Danae thought she heard all these words perfectly. Her hearing, trained in a past life, caught every whisper. Theon quietly asked if she was feeling worse. She was disgusted by the idea that people who were afraid to speak the truth to their faces and whispered behind their backs were called nobles. Danae realized she couldn't stand it, perhaps because of the master's influence. She recalled Lucas's story about demons in the north and a village completely destroyed. Danae thought the twins might have had a similar past. Now everything seemed calm because they lived in an archduchy, where no one was pitiful or abandoned. Danae carefully touched the twins' heads. Shisei immediately said she would ruin his hair. She panicked and apologized, realizing he was simply worried about his hair. Theon asked in surprise why she was suddenly patting their heads. Danae replied that she had heard how hard they were both working. Feeling better, she cheerfully suggested that they quietly go and eat some chocolate cake. Theon noticed that if she was thinking about cake, she must have completely come to her senses. It was Danae who had once again forgotten her original plan. Upon learning she was the future Archduchess, the ladies immediately offered her cake and began asking about Shafis and the secret of his beauty. They were clearly expecting details. Danae thought it looked more like an interrogation room than a banquet. Looking at the surprised faces, she realized how quickly rumors spread in noble society, and that the Asanov family received more than just praise. She found it strange that no one knew the whole truth, yet was so willing to discuss other people's troubles. Danae couldn't understand how anyone could laugh at such a thing. Shisei approached her and asked how long she was going to eat and what she was looking at so intently. He immediately realized that it was gossip and said that there was no point in paying attention to it, because such people are everywhere. Shisei reminded them it was mealtime and asked what they would think of the Asanov family. Danae replied that since he'd seen everything he could help, as she was irritated that questions were only being asked about him and Theon. He explained that it was the heir's duty to cope with such things, and that it was in secular society that one learned to do this. Danae remarked that if he was so concerned about the family's honor, then as the eldest brother, he should have been the first to help. Hearing this, Shis sternly asked her to watch her words. He then said everything was fine, and honor could be restored. Danae asked how. Shisei replied that it was time for a little exercise after eating. She didn't understand what he meant, and he simply suggested she trust him. Danae screamed, asking what he was doing. Shis asked if she was holding on tight, and she replied that she was only managing through her wits. At this time, the ladies watched Shisei with admiration, thinking that he looked simply magnificent. Shis noticed that she had an outstanding teacher and said he would like to meet him. Danae replied that he was handsome but had a difficult personality and was a harsh teacher. Danae said she deserved credit for enduring all of this. Shisei immediately reminded her to watch her words. She got angry, stepped on his foot, and loudly asked why he had exposed himself. In response, he picked her up and twirled her around in the dance again. Danae asked him in surprise what he was doing. Shisei only laughed, but she protested, believing that now was not the time to laugh, as she was so frightened. He said that despite all this, she was a good dancer. Danae replied that she had given it her all and added that it would definitely not be boring with him.